right there, but I'm up there after I've been.
Cassie didn't go with me this morning. She had to go to work early, but I went.
I make a wish.
Huh? I haven't checked my mailbox yet. Haven't.
Oh.
Whatever's.
It's hard.
Right.
In the future, if it was just cold.
Disappeared again. Try to keep
Or we had like
leave
a
it
little
up here,
block
but
that
walks away some.
As long as I have an eye doctor, driver's license. I can't serve. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That may not. Oh yeah.
I just put it in my.
It conflicts with your other.
Oh my word! Thank you both.
Hey. Can you Navy League go to? I don't know if.
If everyone could please sign in so we can get started.
I don't think there'll be anybody in it. Be in uniform.
I'm going to call to order the Sundial Utilities of Milton, Inc. Board of Directors meeting. And I have a speaker request form, but I believe you're waiting for the executive committee. Is that right? So our first item of business is the approval of January minutes. Has everyone reviewed the minutes? And do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Powell, second by Councilwoman Johnson. If there's not any discussion, please vote. Unanimously approved. Second item on the agenda is the December financial report. Are there any questions about the report? If there aren't any questions about the report, do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Is that a motion by Snow? Motion by Councilman Snow, second by Peggy Smith. If there's no discussion, please vote. Unanimously approved. Next item on the agenda is persons to appear. We have a person to appear for Sundial Utilities. Seeing none, Mr. Jorgensen, do we have other business?
No, Mayor.
Then with no other business before us and no one to appear, this meeting is adjourned. And we will reconvene for the executive now unless people want to break. Should we wait for a few
We
minutes?
advertised the meeting at 5:45. We should wait until 5:45.
Okay. The note I had was 5:30, so my apologies. But we will reconvene at 5:45.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I may stand corrected. Pam has just informed me that we don't advertise that it starts at 5:45. We advertise that the council meeting, the executive committee meeting, will start right after the Sundial meeting. So in that case,
We can move
I'm
on.
all for let's get
Great.
underway.
Great. Well, let's get moving then. So, well, I'm going to call this meeting to order, the executive committee meeting of February 4th, 2019, and thank you for updating our screens. First item is approval of agenda for additional items. Do we have any additional items from staff or council?
I have,
Councilwoman Holly? Yes, ma'am.
thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to discuss the audit. And I would also ask that for your consideration to pull item number 1179 up. Mr. Wallace is here, and that item seems to be fairly towards, it's on the third page.
The off-premise directional sign regulations, item number 1179.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Holly's asking to move that up from page 3 earlier so that our visitor can speak to it. Is that right? And is there any other item to add to the agenda per council or staff?
Nothing from staff, Mayor.
I have something, Mayor.
Councilman Snow? Yes, sir.
I want to talk about the letter that we've wanted sent to FDOT. I want to bring that up.
Okay. Anything else?
Length of meetings. I know that's what well, I'll just keep it.
A housekeeping point about the length of the meetings at some point tonight you want to speak to?
Yeah, just because I know we were talking about some things, you know, on the committee of the whole, and the meetings are going to be whether we can add stuff to it or not like that. So just a discussion for that, and I'd like to discuss the TPO also.
Any other items, council? Seeing none. Next item on this agenda is public hearings / meetings. I don't believe we have a public hearing or special meeting to address tonight. So the next item is recognition, special presentations, and awards. I don't see any on our agenda. I don't see invited speakers or persons to appear, although we do have a speaker request form. So we can recognize those individuals now. Shannon Hamley and Emily Shar. Did I say that right? Sure. Thank you. My glasses might need to be improved there.
I'm used to it, I promise.
Please state your name and address, and welcome to the city of Milton.
Thank you. Shannon Hamley, 5478 Alabama Street, Milton.
Emily Scher, 5478 Alabama Street, Milton.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. First, I had sent an email, and I guess my first question is, what is the best form of communication for the committee? Because I'm gathering that email is not.
Okay. I'm not sure
Just from
what you want to communicate
experience.
about, but typically if you'll communicate with Pam Haddon
Okay.
at City Hall, 983-5411 is the number.
She's the first order of contact for anything. Okay.
And we do receive our emails, but I don't remember seeing an email from y'all.
Well, you didn't. I mean, I was in, and it's been a while back, but I had sent an email concerning, I guess, reserving Carpenter's Park for May 25th for a fundraiser and asking the city if they would waive the fee.
Okay.
It
So-
was sent to, what is it? What are they, the position called? I think
Parks
it's
and Recreation.
city manager is who it was sent to. I'm not sure who.
Can
the
you
city
speak in the
manager is.
microphone a little
Oh,
more?
I'm not sure who
It's
the
okay.
city manager is, but that's the email that was sent.
Okay. So if you'll point the microphone a little bit closer to you, so we'll have a record of what you've said.
Okay, but I
it's-
am requesting Carpenter's Park for May 25th and asking that the fee to be waived because it is for a nonprofit organization
Which one?
to host a fundraiser. Tanner Williams Memorial Resource Center, which brings me to another thing. I think in my previous times here, when I've asked about the resource center, I think there may have been some miscommunication on my part that I intend on opening up the resource center. I think maybe there was some miscommunication that I was asking the city to do so, which if you guys do, that's wonderful. But I've already went forward with that in doing fundraisers and, you know, applying for grants and so forth. So that is the nonprofit.
I'm sorry, tell me what the resource center is?
The resource center, when it's up and running, is going to help two things. It's going to help those seeking help from substance abuse. We're kind of going to be a liaison.
Substance?
Yes.
Okay.
Middleman for those seeking help to help them find placement. If they need insurance, helping them acquire that as well, helping them with referrals, actually providing transportation because that's a big barrier for a lot of people. And also those who are in the judicial system, whether it be probation, community control, parole. A lot of those people need guidance. Some don't want it, and that's fine. But those who do need guidance to kind of help get themselves organized, along with some life skills, some financial planning. The business plan is in development as well, but that's the gist of it.
So if a nonprofit is looking for a benefit such as a waiver of a fee to reserve city property, is that a question that they would first direct to the city manager, Pam or Randy?
They would bring it before council.
Okay. And so there's not a specific form they would submit to be considered? They have to come here and appear and talk about it? Okay. So thanks for doing that. Mr. Jorgensen has been the city manager for a little while now. I don't know if you sent it to him or to Mr. Watkins. I don't know when your email.
I'm not sure
was
either. I
sent.
should have looked before I left, but I
That's
did not.
okay.
Yeah, it was sometime in December, late December.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I do recall the email. I know I referenced the email to the Parks and Rec Director. I also would be happy to share the city's policy. The city does not waive fees regardless of the applicant, whether it be a church, a nonprofit organization, or any other. If the organization has got an activity that would be a benefit to the community and allow us to promote our services through a sponsorship, that's something that could be considered. But as it relates to the fees themselves, our policy has been and is today. We do not waive fees of any kind.
I mean, like a natural gas sponsorship?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask them for sponsorship. So I'm saying I need some kind of, if a city business or organization sponsored it, then I would get the park for free.
Well, whatever
that
the
what you're
fee
saying?
is, if you have a sponsor for that, then they would pay the fee, absolutely,
You're
right?
saying, okay.
Yep,
Well, how much
that's-
is the fee?
That's correct, Mayor. I don't know the fee off the top of my head. It depends on what you're asking for. You're asking for a small gazebo. That's
No.
one amount.
We're
If you're
going to
asking for the-
host a 5K, and then we're going to, after the 5K, there's going to be a huge fundraiser at Carpenter's Park. I'm talking live music, bouncy houses,
I would
vendors.
ask that you come in and sit down and we can
Okay.
have a conversation and go through the specifics of your request and.
Okay, is
and
that
then-
with you?
That's with me, and then we'll bring it back to Committee of the Whole, which will meet the week after next, on Thursday afternoon at 3,
Yeah, we'll be here.
or at least it's at 3 as of this time. And we'll talk to council about your specific requests then.
Mr. Jorgensen, is that appropriate for the Parks and Recreation Committee?
If the Parks and Recreation Committee wants to recommend a change to policy, it would be. If the Parks and Rec Committee does not, this is an internal function that's an administrative responsibility.
Okay.
Now, is it just a matter of approvals or a matter of fees? Like, if you guys don't like what I'm doing,
It's actually a matter of both, and
Okay.
it's not whether or not we, frankly, like what you're doing unless it's illegal, in which case we wouldn't allow it.
right?
But beyond that, if you pay the fees associated with renting city's facilities, just as anyone else, everyone has that opportunity.
Okay.
Now,
Yep.
when we go to organize this 5K further, the permits allowed for that, she would need to go through you as well?
Depends on where the 5K is going to occur and how it's going to impact not only our facilities, but the facilities that belong to others. County roads, state roads, et cetera, et cetera. We can talk to you about those specifics and give you information on who to contact if it does.
Okay.
But I can't consent on the part of the state or the county.
Right.
Do y'all have time to meet with him during regular business hours?
I can make it work.
Yeah, we would have to
Okay.
make it work. We
If
both
y'all could
work.
sit down with him and go through
Sure.
your questions, then we'll be glad to take it up at Committee of the Whole, and I hope that you would have a sponsor, because
Yeah, we
sounds
have
like,
several
sounds like a
sponsors.
great effort.
Yeah, we have several
And
sponsors.
have you already set up your nonprofit organization,
Yes, that's already been
501c3
set
and
up.
everything? Well, then there should be no problem with people donating.
Yeah, that's all been set up.
Ladies,
Great.
the Parks and Recreation Committee is mine. If you'll take a card and give me a call, and let me see who's the most appropriate to help you through several things. I mean, you're on the right track, like the mayor said. You have the bones that we're looking for. It's just a matter of, and it's not policy. The policy is we don't let anyone have the park for nothing.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Shannon, if you will, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to, and I thought we had invited you to come over and attend a LEAP committee meeting.
Yeah, I work full time. Sometimes I'm not able to get off and do that.
Okay, and
so,
maybe
but,
we
yeah.
need to look at your hours and see what we can do on that.
Okay.
As you know, that we also are in the process of working and planning a resource center. You know, we've spoken about this a couple of times. We are working on a suicide prevention program, which, and I'm glad you guys came tonight, and you've been here on several occasions, and we've spoke briefly. I don't want us duplicating services.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of room for a lot of people to do a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's a major problem. In doing so, we have begun some talks and some training. I'm working also with Judge Goodman. As a matter of fact, I believe I have a noon meeting coming up again the end of this week in terms of filling out a request for proposal on some activities for students, whether it be in the summer or during the time school is out for holidays. We'll be working on that. And I certainly would like for you to be a part of that. I will get your email address again and see if you can attend one of the sessions with Judge Goodman.
Okay.
At least it's been at least 2 already. One I missed, but I was in touch with the secretary and him as well. But I got another one today to actually put it together, because he knows very well that the LEAP committee of the city is working in this effort in terms of this big thing with suicide prevention. It's a pretty good grant. It's $125,000 for 3 years. And we will be looking at students at the elementary school, probably to the middle school area, and maybe getting some activities together. The judge even said, whatever you do in the proposal, please put a piece in there for food. Because a lot of times some of these students, they go home and there's no food. And also, concurrently to that, Karen Barber is on the committee. She will be heading out the grant process writing, and I will be assisting her and working with her on that, as well as many other people. Also coming up is in March is a graduation class over at the the Guy Thompson Center. I think it's about 30 or 40 students that have been real successful. They've been in the juvenile justice system, and they've done very well, overcoming those things that they came in for. And the judge wants very well, let's try to correct problems at this level before they move up to really hardcore judicial system. So I would like for you, and if you can't make it, just let me know when you're available, and we can get together. And I'd like to get a synopsis of what you call the resource center.
Yeah, I can email you a copy of the business plan.
Please do that, because we were also talking in terms of a resource center being another avenue in terms of more than just basketball. Some of the kids want some cooking classes, dance classes, and things like that. So I'd like to see a meshing of ideas with yours, and so that we can just, be just one big committee. Even though I know you got the, your 501c, but certainly I can speak with clarity in terms of us supporting you, but I do need to look at those documents.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I review those documents with my committee.
I agree, and I think the route you all are taking is more toward the mental health side, which is very much needed in the community, and suicide prevention. I don't think what we're doing is going to overlap, but I will definitely send you the business plan.
Please do. It sounds like it's going to complement.
Yeah.
Because we do have like counselors, even Jim Waters, some ministers, because they're going to be dealing with us in terms of family relationships. I have a meeting tomorrow night on suicide prevention with a group of ministers. So we do have some strategies in place, and as we put it together, and as you know, this is a major concept with a lot of pieces.
Yes.
So send me that information.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does that get you started for now then? Sounds like a great opportunity to collaborate.
I think that's all. That's all I had.
think the only thing that I wanted to say was I was attending the previous committee when the angel wings were mentioned.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am.
And I think that what Shannon was referring to wasn't necessarily the angel wings per se, but something more relative to make Milton more unique. Something that is not angel wings, something that's not, done before. But also I want to state that there are going to be a lot of issues accumulated with angel wings specifically, and that's due to a personal relation. Like, there will wind up being protests if there are angel wings posted. And it's not just my own personal opinion, it's a vast amount of people that I've spoken to. And
well, let me reassure you that the word angel was taken out of the item.
And I understand that, but it's not. When someone, your first thought when someone says wings is usually angel wings. Me being a fat kid, I think chicken wings. But nobody's going to make an art culture of chicken wings to stand and take a photo next to. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, some people think butterfly wings, or bee wings, like Councilwoman Rice was saying as well. So
being Navy, I think wings of gold. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Yeah.
And
the artist will submit his or her concept for the competition, and whatever that concept is, it's up to the artist. And then Milton will have a judge, and there'll be a process. But I appreciate you clarifying that. I mean, we don't want controversy. We want people to have a good time.
And when we initially started coming to these meetings, when I come to the last meeting, I saw you as mayor, and I was pleased to see some fresh faces amongst the ones that are still here. But with there being angel wings, and with what we're doing, and how the drug task force was mentioned in the continued with with the resource center and disc golf, I personally feel should be moved to the top. Because you take the resources, the money going into, you know, the dirt bike track and the wings, and then you take people like us that have had a death related to drugs in the city. You find it in a way offensive. My children are going to grow up in this city. My children are going to live in the socialite, and if the socialite is grounded to mass majority of their population using drugs or substance abuse of any relation, you're not going to be like, hey, let's move to Milton. You're going to be like, we need to get out of here.
Well, there was no disrespect intended to anyone who had lost a family member for substance abuse. That has been an issue of concern for the LEAP committee, and the police chief has been working on the task force as well. So there have been some areas of progress behind the scenes. It just wasn't on the agenda.
Right.
But I'm really glad for what y'all are doing, and I feel that y'all can collaborate with the city, and the city can be a support. There was no disrespect intended to y'all that we have the same policy for every group as far as the use of any park. And
oh, no, I wasn't offended by that. I necessarily wasn't offended by the wings. My first thought was there needs to be angel wings for all the people that are dying from drugs in the city. I don't know if the committee's aware, but people outside, people in the adjoining areas call Milton the meth capital of Florida. That's what Milton is known for in the public. That's sad that we live where people call the meth capital.
Right.
well, I was born here in 1970, and I can assure you I wasn't raised to believe that that's something we'd ever be known for.
Right, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And I hear it every day.
Right. And Madam Mayor, once again, if I might
Yes,
speak.
ma'am.
Also, at the meeting with the judge, there was several other agencies there and some retired educators. One of the things, too, that we want to offer as a part of the Resource Center is an opportunity for students to express their creativity, art, music, poetry. We already have a great program there with poetry, and if we have these avenues where the students can express their innermost being, I think that's a good way for them to vent or to get it out and begin conversation. So I think, and I know the Angel Wing program will be coming up on the menu.
And let the students do it. Don't let
No. The students will be doing this.
Will be doing it.
But I mean, we have naturally they need an instructor, if you will, to guide their thoughts, not what their internal being is saying as they express their art, but there's a roadmap to everything. So since they are elementary students up to middle school, then I would think it would be very appropriate if there's an adult that's expert in the field to just guide the process, not the thought, but expression. But I just wanted to put that part in because I don't ever want to leave art out.
Well, and to help our community and to help our children especially and our young people with drug issues, that's a conversation that deserves a lot of depth. Right. It's not something that I think we're going to solve right here today, but I do think that what you have put together in your organization and what LEAP committee is doing and what the police chief is connected with as far as what he's working on, and there are other things too that we can work on together through brainstorming. Hopefully when you meet with LEAP, that's where I think some of that brainstorming is happening, and that's where I'm hoping that through collaboration maybe with other nonprofits that help our youth in this community, that we can see some improvement on that issue and lose that reputation that you referred to earlier. And it's going to take a lot of us working together over some time to make progress on that. And I know all of us up here commend you for what you're doing for your part, and we all want to help you with that. So I look forward to seeing more about what y'all are going to do and to hearing more from Mary about how LEAP is progressing and from other nonprofits, what they're doing, so that we can find opportunities to help and we can have opportunities to brainstorm about ideas that will help us progress. on a path towards some healing in this community and towards improving the opportunities for our children and our youth to do things other than experiment with illegal substances. So I hope that this time that you came here today is helpful to you. I ask that you follow up with Randy Jorgensen, our city manager. I ask that you get in touch with Mary Johnson so that hopefully you can attend a LEAP committee meeting, or maybe she can point you in the right direction if something that Judge Goodman is doing you can attend. I know with your work schedule there'll be some juggling that has to be done.
Is it Mr. or Mrs. Goodman?
It's Ross.
Ross. That's my email address, and just send me those documentation. I certainly thank you for your leadership in this.
And we will want to study this further ourselves as a council, but we're going to be looking to collaborate with you and others so that we can go forward in a way that's best for our kids. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, other than just
When's your 5K? May 25th?
May 25th. Again,
Okay, I better get fit.
And I know everyone asks for money for different reasons, but before you approve splash parks and another park in this city, please look at where that money needs to go.
Well, let's look at your business plan for your resource
I'm not just saying
center.
my business plan. I'm just saying, just.
Yes, ma'am.
we
I
don't need
agree.
there's not going to be any kids to go to the parks if we don't do something.
And we have a budget process that we go through every year, and I encourage you to be a part of that conversation so that we can set priorities consistent with what issues our nonprofits are seeing in the community. We can't be everywhere. Y'all are in places that we may not be. Y'all are seeing things we may not know about. So we need your help. We need your voice in this. And so I do hope that you'll be part of that budget process and we can make sure that we're prioritizing correctly. And with your business plan and looking at what LEAP is doing, we can see where the gaps are and see what else we can do.
Sure. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. Appreciate both of you. Mr. Johns, you submitted a form. Welcome to the City of Milton.
Deacon Raymond Johns, 5978 Queen Street.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity. I thank God for being here, first of all. And, I want to reiterate just a little bit on what these young ladies were saying. I was a product of crack and alcohol abuse 17 years ago. I have a 17-year sobriety, but I live in the jungle. And I want to tell you, it's getting rough.
Well, that is something that is on our agenda to work on, you and me. I know you've been in touch with me. And
trying to get in touch with you.
Well, I wrote you back. I'm sorry that we haven't been able to sit down yet, but
it's getting worse. And I just want to mention one area, and that's the Session Apartments. That's one of the worst places in Milton. And I want to tell you.
Can you spell that, please?
SESSI.
ONS.
ONS, probably.
Where is that located?
It's at the end of Byram Street North.
Okay.
That's county.
Right before you get to Rosasco. Yeah, it's county.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I know staff has made complaints. I've made complaints, and a county commissioner meeting would be great for that one too. I'm total agreement with you on that.
I understand. I appreciate what you're saying. I need all the feedback because what I'm saying and what I'm trying to do is I've been pounding this pavement for over 2 years, and I'm just trying to say that when this thing with my daughter came up to where she was shot. And then I'm glad the case is over and everybody got sent to prison. But what I'm saying is if we're not too careful, it could get worse than that. It's already a boiling point now.
Right.
It's about to erupt. Now, I know Sessions is in the county, but we all live in Milton.
We're all affected by it.
Yeah.
So I've spoken to Chief Tyndall about your concerns, and so now it's a matter of us.
I speak with him on a regular basis. I call periodically. I call as much as periodically, sometimes more than periodically, just to have somebody to come and look at things that I'm seeing.
Yes, sir.
That what I'm having to live with to get to my house when I go places and come back, what I have to go through to get there. And if I want to be safe while I'm there, and if my grandchildren want to come there, I want to make sure they can come freely and safely. And at the same time, you know, if you haven't lived the way I've had to live to get where I am today, then you ought to get, I'll welcomely let you have my shoes to walk for a day, because it takes more than just people calling in and Tony Tyndall and his officers responding. This has to be kept in mind at all times, just like it's at your front door.
Yes, sir, and I had hoped that the LEAP committee could help with that too, but it sounds as if from the comments that we're receiving tonight that the progress we're making is not fast enough.
We need to LEAP quickly.
I'm going to ask that city staff get with, I'm going to get with them after this meeting. We're going to set up a town hall meeting, and we're going to start brainstorming about what we can do.
Well, I appreciate that, because like I say, I've been talking about this 2 years, and it's nothing but aggravation to me when I see it constantly, you know what I mean, every day. I know it's only so much Tony and his officers can do, and I love all Tony and his officers for what they do, and I've been knowing them all my life because some of them helped me get out of the system, so I appreciate that. But and on the other hand, I'm here to plead with you all before. I don't want to have to do a picket or petition and all this to get something done in Byram Street, the road.
Yes,
I've
sir.
asked y'all to come up there, whoever district it is, and ride it and see what I have to go through every day. Me and my wife were blessed to have a home built in Georgetown Estates. I'm tearing my cars up just to get home and leave sometime. You know, and it just, I've been called in and asking and pleading for over 2 years. You've done every street before you got there and you stopped.
Yes, sir.
And I want to just say, I've been asking over 2.5 years, if you could just, I know you're going to do a major project on it or something, but we need a surface on it now. Patching it is not helping it. It's making it worse. And just to drive down it is just, it's destructive.
Yes, sir, I agree. I've driven it myself.
Yeah.
And I've asked city staff to make sure that we can have a list of every single street that's on the list. Remember when George Riles worked on a list of all the streets that needed to be up?
And he told me that it'll be 2.5 years before they could do anything. I don't want to wait. That'll be 5 years altogether that I'll be waiting just to have some kind of surface. Put a temporary surface on it. You could always reuse the asphalt for your major project that you're going to do on it.
Right.
Hey, I don't want to keep tearing my cars up driving down it.
Right. Mr. Jones, if you will, we are aware of the problems that's going on. And you know, I've talked to you, you've talked to me.
So there's no need for us to go on with it anymore, Mayor. I just wanted to present it. I don't want to go a drawn-out thing about it. I just wanted to come in here, say what I want to say. Hey, don't lecture tonight, please.
No,
I just want to get past it. I'm leaving.
Okay, but I do need to respond to a couple of things. You know, change does not take place sometimes overnight. I know you're not listening because you just walked out of the door in a very disrespectful manner. However, I want to let you know that LEAP has also been working on this, working along with the neighborhood. We do have a list that was developed several years ago based on criteria that was fair to all. And I do know, I do still get some calls here in terms of the road need patching. Every street, I think, got a road that needs patching. And I do know that they have done so, and they are, you know, whenever they get a call, your department, Jeff, they do come out and they do some stuff. But I just want you to know that we've worked with housing on this, the HUD housing issue. We continue to talk with them. It's really a haven for a lot of drug activities, one for a lot of health issues. I myself have spoken to Mr. Cole, who was the chairman at that time. Bob did come, they did respond. But it you know, some things take more than a day or two, or 2 or 3 months, or a year. We are aware of this, and we're trying to work with that. But we got to have some changes in behavior, too, of the people.
It seems, too, that it would help with civic pride if the streets were repaired, and that would discourage some of that activity that is harmful. that's what I think we're hoping for, and that's what I'm hearing from folks who are concerned about the roads. I've heard from more than Mr. Johns about the roads. He also communicated with me about drug issues. And so in terms of follow-up with respect to roads, I asked Mr. Jorgensen to help us see when every road is going to get repaired. You know, not just have fiscal year 19 and then blank spots next to some of the streets, but we need to have a real plan. He told me that during the budget process, we would be able to identify that plan and make sure that they get a specific target date for repair. What I hear Mr. John saying is that that road is so damaged that it needs attention more quickly than what it could get scheduled to receive. So
Mayor,
I
if I
asked
could.
Mr. Jorgensen to look into that. Yes, sir.
Just a couple of quick comments. First, the police chief has met with a number of other parties, and they've held what would be a organizational meeting for the drug task force. Second, North Byram Street is a part of a much larger project. That project is a CDBG application. We've got that engineering underway currently. I have a $55,000 task order that was executed approximately 2.5 months ago. And we have an engineering firm looking at those improvements. Those improvements will not only result in potentially resurfacing all of those area streets, but area lighting, curb and gutter, sewer water. And sewer water is extremely important in that part of the community because, quite frankly, we have a hard time getting adequate flows to our fire hydrants.
Oh, thanks for reminding me of that. I believe you told me before about that grant.
So
when will that money be available, do you think? Or is there anything we can do to help get that money in?
We are doing what we can to help
Okay.
get that money in, and that would be a $750,000 improvement project
Great.
that the city would undertake on behalf of that entire neighborhood, not just North Byram Street.
Well,
Sessions Apartments continues to plague not only Santa Rosa County, but unquestionably the city of Milton because of its proximity. I've been in there on more than one occasion personally. I've been there with code enforcement, and we've made complaints to Santa Rosa County. I would encourage you and other members of council to indicate to them as well our dissatisfaction with the status of that property.
Indicate to whom?
To the board of Santa Rosa County and
Be glad to.
and or their manager. It is a problem, unquestionably, and it's a problem that hasn't been addressed, and it keeps getting worse each and every day.
Councilwoman
So,
Hathaway?
As it relates to the items that were addressed by Mr. Johns, those are things that we're doing now. Again, Chief Tyndall has met with others. They've started the organizational process of reinvigorating the drug task force. We have a potential $750,000 grant that was asked for by a member of council, and we have engaged an engineering firm to pursue that activity. I'm cognizant of these issues. I know that you all are as well, and we're making progress to address each one.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there possibly like a letter that we could write to the county commissioners and have all the council members sign it on behalf of the city of Milton to address the apartment issue?
Would that be one way of letting them know?
That would be one good way of letting them know.
And have all of us sign it?
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Second from Councilman Snow. All in favor? All right. Staff, would you please prepare
We'll craft
such a letter?
and we'll have it back to you for your council meeting next week.
Excellent.
You don't
Thank
mind
so
if
much.
some of us go ahead and call him today, do you?
Councilwoman, you can take the liberty to call anyone you would like.
I have it in dark black ink to have that conversation with him.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think this is a great move. Thanks, Heather, for bringing that. I know it's going to send it to the Board of County Commissioners. Should it be addressed at a meeting to make it? Because I've been bringing this up, and I'm sure others have long before I came into office about that situation down there. And I know they appreciate it, but it just seems like nothing gets done with it.
In
So,
addition, In addition to the letter, then perhaps one of us could come to the next meeting to remind them that we sent the letter.
That, or even our city manager present it.
Yeah.
I'm open for ideas. I'm just
Yeah, I am
something
too.
with a little more stick.
Yeah.
That
You know, you can present it. I would like to give them an opportunity to respond to the correspondence before we determine whether or not that's necessary. Let's have them outline their course of action and see if that's adequate from the city's perspective.
So you would ask for a course of action from them.
That's correct.
Thank you.
if our discussion on that point is concluded, then I'll go to the next person who submitted a speaker request form. Dan D'Angelo, is that right, or D'Angelo? Thank you. Welcome to the city of Milton, sir.
Thank you. I live at 5909 Glover Lane. That's just north of Hamilton Bridge.
Welcome.
We have a speeding problem.
Yes,
This
sir.
is my second request of council in the past year. I have the latest Speed Spy information I will share with you.
Please.
This was done from January 25th to February 1st. Again, keep in mind that the problem is northbound from the intersection of Hamilton Bridge and Glover Lane northbound. You've got Rhodes School up there. You know, I live right on the corner. I hear these vehicles just hitting the gas as soon as they leave the intersection.
Dan, I'm sorry. So the biggest speeders are coming past Tom Thumb, past your house, and
No, they're going northbound from Hamilton Bridge towards
towards the hospital.
towards the hospital, towards Berry Hill.
Turning right towards Hobbs from
Well,
Hamilton Bridge, or
yes.
turning left.
I think it's just a lot of the traffic coming from 90 up.
Yeah, whatever traffic
cutting
is
through.
coming from
Yeah.
that intersection
Yeah.
going northbound.
Gotcha.
But 23,819 vehicles in that week's period of time were flagged. 54% of those vehicles are going over the speed limit. 54%. Of those, another 15, or of that 54%, 15% of them are going 41 to 45. Now, this speed spy was put up right at Red Tail Drive, which is the entrance to Hawks Nest. We're talking about a quarter of a mile from that intersection to Hawks Nest, and they're reaching speeds like this. Another 664 are going 46 to 50 mile an hour. 124 are doing 51 miles an hour or better in that quarter mile, folks. Now, there's a very easy solution to this problem.
What do you suggest?
I'm suggesting a three-way stop sign at Cottage Woods, which is just north of the intersection of the entrance to Hamilton Bridge, or excuse me, to Hawks Nest. Because you go a little further and you've got Country Haven, and then you've got the church, you've got the school, and I'm sure you noticed last year that there was little damage to the fence there at Whiting Pines on Glover Lane. It wasn't necessarily due to speeding, but you know, it's a heavily traveled area. And if you cannot address this problem, and again, I've talked to the chief and he does what he can, but I know the camera light situation has not been a wonderful thing for the city of Milton. I could suggest a speed limit camera. They're a little expensive. I think a stop sign is the most reasonable solution to the problem.
And that's close to that crosswalk where the kids come across to go to Hobbs, isn't it?
Fairly close.
Yeah.
Pull it back a little bit.
A little bit. But I think the distance between the intersection of Glover Lane and Hamilton Bridge up to Cottage Woods is about the halfway point to Berry Hill. And if you don't slow that traffic down before they get beyond there, like I say, if they're doing 45, 50 mile an hour at Hawks Nest, they're doing at least that when they get to Cottage Woods. And I just fear there's going to be a serious injury.
Yes, sir. I understand that fear. So is this something we can take under advisement, Mr. Jorgensen?
This is something I think we should take up in the committee of the whole, and if council would like, you could hear from the chief this evening. I do know that the average speed on that segment is the speed that's posted. While there are outliers, both slower and faster, that is the average speed. We're interested in continuing conversations, and if we could do that in committee, I think that would be appropriate.
Well, I will share this with council, and maybe at the next meeting it could be voted on. That's what I would ask, please.
Thank you for bringing this concern and this proposed solution. It's always helpful when we're given a problem to solve and also a suggested solution. Thank you very much. We'll make sure copies get distributed.
Thank you.
So moving on to the next item on our agenda is the city attorney's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Right now we only have a few personal policy items of various descriptions. We've received the first draft of the proposed union version of a bargaining agreement, which we've just begun our review on. There are a few personnel policy items we're working with the chief, other matters that are still in work and not ready to report.
Thank you so much. City clerk's report.
Yes, all of the elected officials that has not turned in their final report to due by Friday.
Due by Friday? Okay. Well, before we go into the first item, 1160, why don't we take up 1179 as Councilwoman Holly suggested, since we have a person here to speak to it? So item number 1179, off-premise directional sign regulations. Would you like to come and speak to us, sir, about this?
My name is Bill Wallace, and I live at 6225 Robin Hood Road. And our pastor was tied up tonight, and Chairman of Deacons was in San Diego, California, so I said, well, I'll just come down and try to share with the folks and get their feelings about our church sign. Ferris Hill Baptist Church is, as most of you know, is about a couple of blocks off of the main drag here, and we advertise on the sign out on the road there, and we want to get a new digital sign, a real attractive sign, and just attract more attention to the church and the things that are going on over there. Not only the cold weather shelter, but anything else that our church sees fit to put on the sign. You know, I've never had to do this, but at our church, when you want to put up a little sign over there, and there's something new on the sign, you have to get all the letters out and arrange them all out there. You have to get your ladder and throw on your truck and drive the 2 blocks and get your ladder off and hope you don't fall off the ladder while you're doing it. But anyway, if you have any questions that I might be able to answer for you, I'd be glad to try it.
Thank you for being here with us. I appreciate you being here. And the last I remember about this item, there was possibly going to be a proposed regulation change. Is that right, Mr. Jorgens?
What we've recommended, and this was included obviously within the material provided to council, this will require action on the part of the planning board. This sign, as it's described, is prohibited. Staff does not have the ability to grant them the right to place a electronic variable message sign at the location they've indicated without a change to the Code of Ordinances. The change is to the Unified Development Code, thus it requires planning board review. It's going before the planning board for their review. In the interim, we've indicated that they could perform maintenance on their existing sign, and if that maintenance included along the thoroughfare, indicating the location of the shelter, that would be acceptable from our perspective. But that's where we are currently.
When will it go before the Milton Planning Board?
It's scheduled. I can't give you the definitive date off the top of my head, but I know it's
30 days.
Next Thursday.
Oh, next Thursday?
Excuse me, this Thursday.
Thursday. So, sir, because of the rules and regulations that apply to us, we have to go through a certain process. And at the last meeting, the process that was identified included going to the Milton Planning Board. Mr. Jorgensen's gotten that scheduled. So we should see some movement as time goes on. And in the meantime, Mr. Jorgensen had encouraged your church to do whatever maintenance can be done that would help you achieve your goals. I don't want you to fall off that ladder now. But that's where I believe we stand right now. The Milton Planning Board, maybe someone from your church can visit at that time. But I don't know that there are any questions that would have to be answered. I believe we're recommending that they approve this. Is that right?
Oh, they recommend to council.
Right.
Not council recommending to the planning board.
I shouldn't have said we, but you as city staff.
We're not opposed to the request, provided that we can limit these types of signs to specific activities that would be identified in the code. My fear is off-premises variable message signs for the purpose of identifying an activity and or location. If not extremely limited, we could become the boulevard of neon, and everybody who's a block off the thoroughfare would want an off-premise variable message sign showing their location. So that's what's going to the planning board. That'll be the recommendation from staff. Ultimately, that's what they'll take up and recommend to council.
Yes, and I misspoke earlier when I said we. I used to be city staff, but what I was trying to make sure of is that city staff is recommending to the Milton Planning Board to approve this specific change, which would allow this type of off-premise sign to occur. Is that right?
Just for a shelter.
Just for a shelter. It's very limited.
If we have more than one shelter to have this type of sign, it
Right.
would provide for it. But this is just for shelters.
That would help us avoid the parade of horribles that you're referencing from a planning perspective of
Mayor?
many neon signs.
Mayor?
Okay, everyone's saying at once. Councilman Snow, I'll ask you first.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wallace, as I understand it, you're not wanting just to advertise, and I'm sure staff understands that. You're not wanting just to advertise the cold weather shelter. You're wanting to advertise whatever that is needed or wanted that the church is putting on.
That's right.
And everything. So I'm not sure if we're going to, if the planning board or even this council, unless a major change went with policy, if something's actually, if it's going to be worth the investment that the church is willing or wanting to do and not achieve your total goal. So I don't know if there's, grandfathering certain signs in. I don't know if there's some ways of doing that from staff. I think our hands are tied by the city law at this point in time a little bit. So I'm not sure even going to planning that's going to achieve what you're totally asking for. So am I correct on that, Randy?
Well, that'll be up to the planning board. That's what's being presented to them as a slate of options. And, I think you're right in what you're describing. That's correct, Councilman.
You might want to come to the Milton Planning Board or someone from your church to speak to what your church's goals are so the planning board can take that into consideration, because what will ultimately get approved may not be exactly what your big picture goal is. Councilman Jordan and Councilwoman Rice?
I think it should be noted in the information going to the planning board that they are not planning to increase the size of the sign and that there will be no additional use to what they are doing now. They are presently using the sign in exactly the same manner that they intend to use it when they update the sign.
Just in digital form, basically?
Just a more modern sign. they now change the sign as necessary, manually by hand, and this will make it easier on the people at Ferris Hill who change this sign.
Yes.
And we're not doing anything other than just updating the sign.
And the new sign, excuse me, and the new sign will be smaller than the one that's up there now.
Councilwoman Rice?
I just wanted to add that I think we should find a way to do this. They're providing a cold weather shelter. They're providing a great service, so we should let them also advertise their church.
Well, the problem with advertising the church, in addition to using it for the shelter, creates then the requirement that we let everybody in Milton advertise wherever they want.
I understand. If they also want to provide a cold weather shelter, then maybe we let them also advertise where they want.
Madam Mayor, may I speak? I don't want to jump into the planning board's business, but the problem, Councilwoman, becomes if you try to insert yourself as a public body into content question, you can certainly judge the purpose of a sign if it is limited to that purpose and make that a generally applicable law, which is what planning board would speak to, what language they would choose to do so. Can't thereby create an exception whereby you can allow all sorts of other messages to be incorporated, or else anybody can put up a sign of the same form under the same provision and put whatever messages they want on.
If they also provided a cold weather shelter?
That would become a Trojan horse type situation, and that's been dealt with.
I mean, I don't mean to jump in, I'm sorry. But I mean, the sign that they have up now is currently being used for other things other than a cold shelter, correct?
I didn't know that.
I mean, don't they advertise now different, memos about their church? So wouldn't this technically be considered just like an upgraded sign? I mean,
it is not. It's a variable message sign, and the code doesn't provide for it. It's prohibited.
Okay.
Specifically. Now, I would ask council to allow the planning board to do their jobs and to come back to you with a recommendation. We're cognizant of the request. We have the planning board from that purpose. Until the planning board reviews this case, please defer.
So we're going to close the discussion on this for now, sir, so that the planning board can do what it is tasked to do, and then it will come back to council for further discussion.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir, for being with us.
Thank you for what
you do. Thank you.
So going back in order in our agenda, first item would be under the Administration Committee, Councilwoman Sharon Holly, 1160.
I hope I can talk without my voice cracking here.
Sounds good so far.
Item 1160, board vacancies. Description, staff received one board appointment survey form that met the criteria to fill one of the vacant board positions. The recommendation is that the committee recommends appointment of Shari Sebastio to the Milton Civil Service Board, and I would put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Councilwoman Holly made the motion. I heard 2 seconds. I'll go with Councilwoman Hathaway because that's the voice I recognized first. All in favor, please vote. Thank you. It's unanimously confirmed. So that will go to council then, or in the consent agenda. What's the next item?
Item number 1188, DevTech training class for gas department. Description is Mike Patera and Gary Richards in the gas department needs to attend a training class in Avalon Park, Florida on February the 19th through February the 22nd, 2019. The cost is $2,650.08 plus the gas for the city truck. The funding for this is budgeted. The recommendation is committee recommends approval for out-of-town travel for Mike Patera and Gary Richards on February 19th through the 22nd, 2019 at a cost of $2,650.09 plus fuel. There's 1 penny difference there, but we'll just let that ride. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Councilwoman Holly made the motion. Councilman Powell seconded. Please vote.
On the 9 cent?
No, the 1
Sure.
penny.
That'll be fixed by
On
the
this
council.
budgeted item, yes, all in favor. This goes then to the consent agenda for council. And now we move to the Finance Committee, Councilman Casey Powell.
First item we have is item number 1156 is the bad debt write-off for December 2018 and January 2019. December 2018 was $5,517.27. Year-to-date was $20,458.17, less gas credit and collections of $3,423.78. That's the total of $17,034.39. Committee recommends approval of bad debt write-off for December 2018 in the amount of $5,517.27. I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Powell, second by Councilman Snow. There's no discussion, please vote.
If I could just add one thing, it looks like there's a separate page for January. I didn't read that, even though it's under the same agenda item. So if I could just read that really quick. The total amount write-off for January is $5,917.14 as well. I apologize.
And is that your motion to
Yes,
add
I'll
that?
amend the motion to include both.
I'll amend the second.
Amended motion by Councilman Powell, seconded by Councilman Snow for the bad debt write-off for December and January. There's no discussion or questions, please vote. Unanimously affirmed, and that will go to the consent agenda. Next item, Councilman Powell.
Item number 1186, Downtown Festival Area Redevelopment. The Downtown Festival Area project was approved as part of the fiscal year 2019 budget and capital improvement plan. Construction is underway. The total cost is $220,000. This is funded from the Lost Fund. And recommendation is that we approve moving the lost funds and authorize the manager to approve expenditures for this project. And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Councilman Powell's motion was seconded by Councilwoman Johnson. If there are no questions or discussion, please vote.
I see they're well on the way of getting that work done.
Unanimously confirmed. That moves to the consent agenda. And that concludes Finance Committee, Growth and Development Committee, Councilman Jordan.
Item number 1004, Restore Act, Quinn Street Marina, Phase 1. Because of financial concerns, this item was withdrawn from consideration at the Committee of the Whole by unanimous vote. We don't need to have any action on this, I don't believe.
Ultimate will be listed on the consent agenda for council unless someone wants to pull it.
Do we need to have a vote tonight just to put it
I don't think so. We're withdrawing the application.
Right.
I mean we've withdrawn the application.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Item number 1166, Wings Over Milton Public Art Contests, calling for submission. There was no objection to the actual program at the Committee of the Whole, but there was objection to the connection with artist Colette Miller and the use of angel wings. Staff has changed the wording on this to eliminate any association with the artist or any association with angel wings. I make a motion we move this to council.
Second.
Discussion, please.
Councilwoman Rice.
So I'm really happy to see these changes. I like art. But as I spoke with Mr. Jorgensen today, my initial concern also had to do with us paying for this out of the natural gas of Milton Promotions and Marketing Fund. And that reasoning was because I don't think it looks so great for us to just say it's promotion or marketing just because we put a sticker that says natural gas or part of the that says natural gas. And to help with that, what I would like to do is to maybe emphasize a little bit more that by buying and subscribing to local utilities, we put that money back into the local community. It may be obvious to some people that we do that, but I would like a little bit more focus on that. That's what we're doing, so that then it's not just like a sticker here, it's just another promotion from us.
I understand what Councilwoman Rice has indicated. She's, I think, I agree with her, quite frankly, as it relates to her desire to get people to understand the difference between using natural gas in Milton and that local utility being able to return part of their investment to the community, as opposed to simply using power supplied by a source that's much greater in volume and impact. I mean, it's a good concept. So we'll bring something back at the council meeting that will address what she's expressed as a part of this, and I would ask that you move the item to council, and we'll give you some additional material then on how we can achieve what she's described.
Can I describe a little bit more so I can explain this? The real focus is just about transparency. So that if anyone looks at this fund and says, why did you use natural gas to support this, that it's very clear that we used it because we are local and we're putting money back into the community.
Does this idea require a change to the submission paperwork?
It does not.
I don't think
it requires a change in what's described here, so that if council consents, that's the approach that we're taking.
Motion.
Second.
Councilman Snow made the motion. Councilwoman Johnson seconded to move this item forward to council, and Mr. Jorgensen will be responding to Councilwoman Rice's concerns. Keeping in mind that, is everyone prepared to vote now? Please vote.
What item number?
I'm sorry, we're on 1166. Councilwoman Holly, to move forward the Wings Over Milton contest. It's been unanimously approved. It will go to the consent agenda.
Mayor, can I make one little quick comment on that? And you brought it up earlier about the wings. Artists have all kind of different ideas of different types of wings, and I think the mayor brought up butterfly. So we're just seeing what they come up with, and we'll put something tasteful out for the community to really enjoy at one time. So just wanted to be clear on that. So.
Thank you, sir. Next item, Councilman Jordan.
Item number 1174, recommendation to establish local heritage sites requested by the Historical Preservation Board. Recommendation was passed at the Committee of the Whole with a majority vote. I make a motion we move this forward to council.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Jordan, second by Councilwoman Johnson. If there's no discussion, please vote.
I have.
Councilwoman Holly, yes, ma'am.
In reading through the materials, I don't have heartburn with a local heritage site, but with what is proposed here, the property owner is going to receive a certificate that they own a local heritage site. So that's fine. And but what, other than the property owners receiving a certificate, what is the underlying benefit for the 51% rule here or a boundary map? I mean, there has to be a benefit for so much work to be put into.
I believe the benefit is the community recognizes the historical and cultural importance of that portion of the community, and there is appropriate recognition in terms of signage that indicates just that the people who live in homes that have historical significance in that part of the community understand that home has value and that it contributes to the community's history.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I believe that's the benefit.
Well, I don't see then why we need the 51% rule then. The benefit to a property owner, for each property owner to say, you know, I like this and I would like to be recognized as having a heritage site. But why does all the verbiage have to go in about the 51%?
The multiple,
I don't understand that.
if I could, the multiple for a petition that would be provided to the council to consider from property owners. If a land area has, 50 property owners, you would need 26 of them to ask the council to create this as, just as it would indicate, as a local heritage site. And the reason for that is to say that the majority needs to vote in favor before council would give it your consideration. If you think that one person should be able to identify an area where there are 50 properties and say, I think that all 50 properties should be included in a local heritage site, we can do that. But I think the majority of the property owners within that given area should have to indicate a desire.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Jorgensen, but this will not qualify as a historic district.
It won't. You're right.
It won't serve as grant funding. So
No,
it's basically, it's meaningless to me.
Well,
other
than what I described, which I believe has value, and that's why it's being done.
So your department is ready to, I see in here, the Planning and Development Department is going to maintain and keep up with all the data that would be provided to them, and I guess this would be only from the property owner, or would it be from somebody else in the area? Could they nominate them as well, or does the property owner have to come forth and say, I want to be on the site, or can another individual say, well, I think that they definitely qualify? Because reading through here, I mean, it says something about a significant, may not be the correct verbiage, a hip roof. Hip roofs, I mean, they're still building today with hip roofs. I mean, that's not unique. That was the verbiage used in here, unique hip roof. And I thought, I don't understand what the underlying benefit is for the property owners that would qualify, other than them saying, hanging on their wall.
I mean, if I may say something, I think it was, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the benefit was just to recognize the area instead of making it like an actual, district, just because there's some people, because if you do that, then the houses would have to meet that code and things like that, and just recognizing the area prevents homeowners from having to change housing and things like that. I mean, I think that's how I understood it.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Briefly, we reviewed this policy, Councilwoman and Councilwoman, and the issues here are not regulatory. That's very clear. Essentially, this is a form of legislative recognition, which is done by legislative bodies everywhere, and it serves a function beyond anything that anybody gets any monetary value out of, or that the political jurisdiction is getting any regulatory value out of. It is simply a finding and statement of something that then becomes part of the collective memory of the community, which otherwise might be lost. I mean, there's certainly a lot of people who have looked into historic preservation. There's value beyond establishing districts for regulation and establishing, national register locations and things of that nature. And that, from our perspective, and looking at this in context with other provisions that have been used in other areas, is essentially what it is doing.
Okay, I understand that, and I appreciate that, but, I would just like to bear with the city council in reference to what we're going to see further down the pipeline in reference to this same boundary map. But I'm all for Kaiser Cemetery being placed on the national register so that they can get some grant funding nationally for that particular cemetery, which I do think they would qualify, according to the person I spoke with in the national department in Tallahassee. So I hope that the city goes forward with Kaiser Cemetery and putting them on the national register, but I'm just still I'm hesitant about this, but that's fine if council. So I'm just saying, please remember what I said. We'll go.
Thank you, Councilwoman Holly.
Councilwoman
Johnson.
Madam Mayor, if I might speak.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it was very clear on something Mr. Jorgensen said, public cultural awareness. It is a lot of history in Milton that is not known, and even with the residents therein, if they knew, many of them do, but if the public knows about all of this history, it can also impact on economic awareness. I think it's a very excellent idea, and anytime that we are able to highlight significance in terms of historical significance, if you will, I think it's something that we should do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick statement, because this item jogged my memory, and I've been asked a couple of times about it. Mary, you might have information. A school at the end of Walker and Mary Street around the corner. You know which school we're talking about?
Yes. There are many sites that I can identify tonight.
Right. Well, and I know we can,
but the school, J.B. Turner.
Okay. Can we look into that in the future? I don't want to prolong this talking about it, but I keep forgetting about it, so I want to make sure that.
Councilman will be happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, Jack Sanborn, 6484 Old Baghdad Highway, Milton, Florida. One of the things I don't know if it's come up is the tax credit that an investor gets if he or the owner gets if they fix up a historic or an historic property. If it's not in a designated historic district, you get a 10% credit. That's not a deduction, that's an actual credit. So if you spend $100,000, you get $10,000 back on your income taxes. If it's in a designated historic district, I believe that goes to 20%. So there's significant benefits for improvements and for getting people involved with purchasing and upgrading historic structures.
Thank you for that information, sir.
Yeah, I don't believe in this case, because it's not a national recognized place, that would qualify. However, I'm all for recognizing these areas for their cultural benefits and for the history that has happened there.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Powell. Yes, ma'am.
Pam Mitchell, 6616 Ravine Street. I'm just not real clear on this, and I just wanted somebody to answer for me. You have 3 different items here for local heritage sites, and it's real easy and simple to understand if we're going to declare Mary Street and Kaiser Cemetery, but what area is item number 1174? Is it just generic throughout the city?
Excuse me just a minute. We haven't got to either one of those items on 1170.
1174 is more of the general process.
You haven't got to those items to discuss them.
No, I know. I was just asking. I'm just asking on item number 1174.
Yes, ma'am.
Does it have a designated area?
No, ma'am.
Within the city? It would be anywhere in the city that would be a historic or a heritage site.
1174 is specifically to allow for the ordinance number 1485-19, which would set up the process for allowing a local heritage site in general. And then there are materials behind that item.
So it's not just like the downtown historic area. So like my street that I live on, that we've got a number of older homes and the Collins Mill Creek and the old mill site and all. I mean, we could if we, okay. I was just trying to understand why others, the next 2 were defined and this one was just like open-ended.
Those were the ones that had come up, but there could be others that come up based on the process that is being submitted for approval in 1174.
Okay, and one other question. These local heritage sites, would that have any impact on like the DOT studies and the 4-laning of Highway 90? I mean, there's...
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so 1174 being the general item, not specific to either Mary Street or Kaiser. There's been a lot of discussion on it. We have a motion and a second. Is everyone ready to vote now? Unanimously approved. That moves to the consent agenda. Go on, please, Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I'd like to group 1175 and 1176 together. The Mary Street and the Kaiser Cemetery sites were seen as meeting all the requirements at the Committee of the Whole for the to proceed with the application process. I would make a motion that we move this Committee of the Whole that the application process be started.
Second.
May I ask for clarification? Are you making the motion that at council there will be a vote on this, or Mr. Jorgensen? Are you
No,
wanting
I
that
was just
sort of
trying
thing?
to clarify that all we were doing was moving the application process. We're not actually approving anything here other than the application process.
And the reason I asked is because in our materials we have highlighted move to council as committee recommendation. So I'm trying to understand where is this going to?
This is moved to council. What you're doing is potentially establishing these two areas, but the council is calling for, once the program's established, which 1174 accomplishes, then the next step in the process, if the council desires, is to identify these two areas for designation.
Separately.
So separately or collectively, depending upon your wish. You can do them both. So what you've done is you've moved the establishment of the program without objection to the council, and it will be on consent. The next step is to call for these two to be established, and that takes an act of the council, and you're moving it forward for council's consideration and action at the council meeting.
Can that be put on consent?
If that's your desire.
Motion.
Councilman Jordan's already made the motion.
He made a motion, though, to move it to committee of the
He
whole.
didn't make a motion to move it to.
You said committee of the whole.
Excuse me, I
Okay.
made a mistake.
Okay.
That's what I was asking.
That was
for,
the
so-
question.
Okay.
Yeah, I misspoke. Excuse me.
That's what I
Okay,
thought.
so you
Councilman
amend your
Jordan.
motion.
I do. I amend my motion.
Very well.
Councilman Jordan's motion has been amended. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Smith. We have a second for Mary Street and Kaiser Cemetery to be moved to council. If there's no discussion, please vote. Unanimously approved. Please proceed. There's
Okay.
one other item, I believe, in your committee, sir.
Okay, item number 1178, transportation alternatives, set aside funding for Milton multimodal connect. After consideration of the committee of the whole, council unanimously voted to have staff proceed with the application fund phase 1 of Milton multimodal connect. And I make a motion to move that to council.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Jordan, second by Councilman Powell. If there's no discussion, please vote. Unanimously approved for consent. Public Works Committee, Councilman Jeff Snow. 1171.
Yeah, item 1171, Santa Rosa County and School Board, City of Milton shared contract. Description, the city purchasing policy allows council to waive the bid process and use other contracts that have gone through the review processes and have been approved by another government entity. Santa Rosa County and School Board have approved for us to piggyback from each of their bids. Bidders have approved and accepted our request to use the same bid amount. Signs and reflective sheeting materials, Santa Rosa County awarded to Vulcan Signs. Custodial services, Santa Rosa County School Board renewed the 5 additional years to ABM. Recommendation, committee recommends waiving the bid process for signs and reflective heating materials and accept the 5-year renewal for custodial services through June 30th, 2023. That in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Snow, second by Councilwoman Johnson. If there's no discussion, please vote. Unanimously approved. Moves to consent. We already discussed 1179. So 1180? Councilman Snow?
Okay. Item 1180, impact fees, EIS database project. Impact fees for water and sewer are assessed to each residence and new business that is established on the city's water and sewer system. Applicable fees for each development are based upon an equivalent residential unit, which equals 250 gallons per day for water and sewer. Each residence assessed the cost applicable to 1 ERU when it is built, and each non-resident is assessed a fee based upon the projected number of ERUs it will consume. For new businesses within existing buildings, impact fees are credited to the new businesses or business based upon the highest demanding use on record with the city. City staff has recently completed the creation of a database of impact fees that have been collected for each building that is currently connected to the city's water and sewer system. These records were derived from old receipts and invoices where available. Where no records for a building were available, staff assigned a value based upon the highest historical demand of water using historical flow rates. The value for each commercial building represents the highest historical demand the city has on record, and this demand can be credited to each new business to reduce the cost of impact fees to only the amount of usage that exceeds the highest historical demand. The implementation of this database will be a useful tool for staff in the future as new development connects onto the city's utility system to provide the most accurate assessment of impact fees, and will act as a single database that can be updated with each new development going forward. Recommendation: establish database as basis for impact fee assessments. Committee recommends to adopt methodology for impact fees GIS database. Put that in the form of a motion.
Councilman Snow has made the motion. Do I hear a second? Councilman Powell has seconded. There's no discussion. Please vote. And there's one nay, so this will go back. This will not be in the consent agenda for next week. Now moving on to council reports.
Can we take 5?
Okay, we're going to take 5 minutes. It's almost 7 o'clock.
Some people have to.
I sound like a girl over here trying to eat my peanuts. I'm hungry.
I'm not.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you again. Okay. I think Randy Corag was applicant. Background that I know that had an application, but realized, studied, asked for money. The application stated, and because of that done, you have to certify that once you realize not asking for the right amount of money, you're obligated, frankly. Not tell them, yeah, you have to, really, based on that, because
You're giggling at me.
walking that through for the election that this was submitted, in fact,
I was like, I would
for Randy was the initial. So on further review, noted that's asked something that wasn't. I'm going to try to move forward. Well, there is some opportunity, some kind of improvement value now. Will be. Again, I really think your best bet is back, and I'm trying to stay. Look at Mr. Morgan's right. Jorgensen have discussed is Marina, blew up getting this project right now. Doesn't mean we won't try to the right time that. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. But just not that. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm really not helping you as much as you need help.
Right.
It was an effort.
It is a first step.
It was a valuable effort that was made, but on closer study, it was realized more money was what the project called. So we couldn't certify to the council.
Yeah. But this is where that came from.
Project that amount of money.
You had to come up.
We basically had a drawing board with four.
That'd be good.
But and
hopefully
something with other money that we have for the marina, and I asked you to go back to Mr. Morgan. And in the green shirt. Down by.
So as long as it's not resident. As long as you're not living in it. Oh, gotcha. That's.
They can do better than I can. Hopefully that helps you ask questions that will help you get where you want to go.
That's not used as a single-family home. With this, I didn't work with this personally.
You have all the information
No.
on that? The agenda
Not me
attachments?
personally. I've
You have
never
the
had
agenda
to deal with
attachment too? Okay, good. Good.
It's
what is your particular question about it? Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're doing this on it. Yeah, it's Randy's actually a great person to talk to about it, planner by training and trade and everything. He's about that.
I don't know, but that's.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. But the multimodal price development following had an issue come up with
Mary Street area, I know, but very little, yeah, mostly rest.
I don't.
That's the proposed boundary lines.
So anytime he development.
Oh. Where this came from? No, we had to find it. They came.
Might tell you more than just that.
Qualify.
Have the item, like the hard copy I have. So I don't mind giving you.
Try to get it recognized.
Well. Always. No, I don't know. I don't.
Sorry,
Hard here to discuss. But I mean, if the council. The annual report. So have you talked to Rebel about it yet? Well, fund our city, our fire department, and we also have a special assessment that we got to for so that we can obtain funding equipment. Yeah, so.
I'm cool with you. I ain't lost 21 pounds.
I thought it was Wednesday, not Friday.
These old guys.
Correct.
He's failing to include himself in that category.
I'm with this fire department report. Annie has questions about it. I don't know.
Keep going down. Keep going down. Keep going. 35.
I got a ring.
Happens.
So when y'all
45. 9 years older than me.
So when you dude, I had to live and I had to over dude, man, if I had a 9mm, I'd have went out and shot it.
Okay, folks, we've had more than 5 minutes, so if the council could return to their seats and we could continue with our business. Bird and our cat.
In our 5 free time. How you doing? I could help your soul. Outpatient? Good. I want you to have to.
But it ain't.
Would we?
Tell her that I thank you. All right. Looks like we have all assembled, so I'll call this meeting back to order. And on the agenda, we have reached council reports. And we had some items added to the agenda. Councilwoman Holly asked to add the audit. Would you like to bring that up now, Councilwoman Holly?
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
The city has just completed their physical audit through Warren and Averett. And you haven't completed it yet? Okay. Well, the question that I had was, well, let me ask you this, though. This question is for Ms. Nobles. You, as the city clerk, have you designated anyone to keep up with the receipts and the expenses out of the CRA area? Okay. Well, the next question is, or the next thing is that our auditing firm has not, did not include auditing Main Street Milton. Next year's audit. They're not doing it this year. No. So with that being said, I would like to have an independent audit done for transparency purposes. I mean, they requested to be put on the same fiscal year as the city of Milton instead of from June to June. So with that being said, that their audit should happen the same time as the city's does, since they've got government funding. According to law, DeWitt, you are supposed to keep up with every receipt and every expense that is an expenditure through the CRA. Now, just writing them a $10,000 check or a $20,000 check is not keep it. Do you have receipts?
Yes.
That balance for everything that they do? So then, okay, if you have that in your office, then why is our auditing firm not auditing that this year?
It will be in our audit.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the relationship we have with Main Street Milton, the auditors will probably conduct a compilation report for Main Street Milton. Because of the extent of the funding that we provide to them, it would be the auditor's position that next year they should audit the organization in the same way they would any nonprofit. And they have spoken with me about that. I've concurred, and that will be conducted during next year's process. For this year, I think the compilation is probably sufficient to meet the city's needs. When it comes to their expenditures, they have extensive reporting of revenue and expenditures, and I know that that is provided to the clerk. It's also provided to me upon my request. And they have been transparent as it relates to those expenditures to date. So I hope that meets the council's needs. I believe it will. And because of the extent of the support provided by the city to Main Street Milton, next year they will be audited in the same form and fashion as we are.
Why wasn't that done this year?
Because it wasn't part of the RFQ we put out for bids at the time it was done.
What time was that done? Before Main Street was even funded?
Before Main Street was, the relationship is what it is today.
That makes sense. So before the relationship was created, the RFQ was already determined, so it wasn't already assigned to our auditor to do that, and that will be updated for purposes of next year.
That's correct.
So I would just like to confirm that Ms. Nobles is saying she has every receipt of every expenditure that this council has approved in her office. Okay, thank you.
And Councilwoman Holly, for the purposes of transparency, are you asking to see what the city clerk has?
I had no idea that she had those receipts in her office, because it was to my understanding that there was not a designee for the transparency, for the keeping up with the expenses, if the city clerk was not going to do that. And so with the funding that we have put forth with them, I didn't really see an issue if we could even conduct an internal audit in reference to Main Street Milton and the monies that the city of Milton has provided to them. We do have a CPA on our payroll.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jorgensen?
Well, just as a point of clarification, I think what the clerk is referring to, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but just want to make sure everybody understands. What she has is receipts and expenditures for the proceeds that have been provided to the nonprofit on behalf of the city of Milton in keeping with council's direction. As it relates to the decisions that were made by the board of directors in the application and use of those proceeds, I would doubt that she possesses every receipt and expenditure for every item that they've, she doesn't have those.
Well, that's where I was getting. So
I
you
think,
don't have it.
Yeah.
No, I don't have what they,
Yeah,
I have what the council, I have my invoice.
Yeah, that's
for that.
the point I was trying to make. So I'm just clarifying that.
All right. Well, I had perceived that as that you had kept the receipt. I mean, I asked you that, and you said yes. So, with that being said, I'd like to still see an independent audit done then.
I think the city can express that to the board of directors of Main Street Milton if they would like. I think that decision rests with their board of directors. As it relates to next year, I've already had a conversation with Warren Averitt and indicated to them, and they have indicated to me that an audit separate from the cities on the organization would be appropriate from their perspective. I'm going to follow the advice and counsel given to me by our auditors. For this year, you can make a recommendation to the organization, but it would be action taken by them.
Well, then I would like to ask Attorney Need, right? Did I say that right?
Mead.
Mead. I'm
right.
sorry. Attorney Mead, could you please research the city clerk's responsibilities in reference to the CRA area and come back and let us have that opinion next week?
Mayor, shouldn't that take an act of the council to approve that?
I would need direction from the councilwoman. I'm happy to look into any matter the council wants me to look into, and I'd be happy to talk with you about that offline. But in terms of providing an opinion, that's on the council.
Well, I'll just bring the law.
Councilwoman Holly,
next week.
If you're asking for the city attorney to give an opinion, you can make the motion to see if you have a majority of council. And if he has a majority of council directing him to do so, then he can do so.
Certainly.
Okay.
Are you asking to make that motion?
Yes, I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Okay, so Councilwoman Holly has made a motion that we ask the city attorney to research to ensure that the city clerk is, what her responsibilities are with respect to the receipts.
With respect to CRA monies.
With respect to CRA monies. to ensure that there's nothing further she needs to do with respect to Main Street Milton?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll second that.
Councilman Powell has seconded that motion. If there's no discussion or question.
I want to ask Randy a question.
Councilman Snow, you're recognized.
Thank you. Randy, as you've seen, Main Street Milton has been very transparent with everything for anyone on this council or the mayor at request. I'm just looking, are we wasting taxpayer dollars having our attorney look further somewhere that's not necessary now?
Well, I don't know that we're ever wasting taxpayers' dollars as it relates to ensuring that those proceeds were used properly and in compliance with the law. And it's just an attorney's opinion, so it's not a substantive matter that's going to take a week of review. As it relates to your statement, they have. I have never had an issue with obtaining whatever information I've requested of them.
Well, regardless of their transparency, Councilwoman Holly's motion, seconded by Councilman Powell, is a slightly different question. And so to ensure that we are following the law, it makes sense to get an opinion on compliance.
One thing I would say, and this goes to Councilman Snow's question, is has been experience with other bodies here in the area with regard to these private or other communal development organizations that are nevertheless receiving significant public funds or significant public interrelationships. And there can be questions that are created in those circumstances, and it's not an idle issue for the council to take up, I don't think.
Thank you. I just wanted some clarification on that.
And if I could be,
yes,
if I
sir.
could speak, I just wanted to say that I agree with Councilwoman Holly that we just want to make sure that on our end we're following all the procedures that our clerk and our records would ask us to follow. I think that's a worthy subject to look into and make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do on our end.
Yes, sir. Any other comments from the council? I believe we have Mr. Mitchell.
Yes, Jerry Mitchell, 6616 Ravine Street in Milton. The Main Street issue, if you've looked at who they awarded the grants to in this past series of grants, you've got, you need to look at that. When you have board of directors receiving a majority of the grants, I say them receiving them or their properties receiving like a third of approximately of the grant money that they have passed out. I would like to ask you as a council, I know there's another grant process that was just kind of sent out today on Stewart Street. I would ask you, I guess the city was going to fund this. I would ask you to stop the funding on it until you can get some clarification. You can find out if it is legal for the board members to receive these funds as they have in the past.
And Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Councilman Powell, you'd like to respond directly to that?
I would just like to say you might want to be careful in the way that we word that sort of accusation, because we have reviewed all of the awards that were given out, and they were given out to business entities. They're not on the property themselves, and from the records that we received, there was no funds that went directly to any board member. Now, if you're saying that it's a surprise that Main Street board members are people who have interest in the downtown, it shouldn't be, because that's the people that should be interested there. And I think that we will continue to look at those things going forward. But
and that's what I'm asking you to do.
We did get a record of all of the ones who were awarded, and they were awarded to specific businesses, not to the individual property owners.
Okay, I would still like the council to look further into this and see, and I'm asking you to make a motion that you look into it and see if this is being done above board.
Mayor?
Mr. Mitchell, thank you for your comments. Councilman Snow, you're recognized.
Thank you. They're pointing out certain business owners, we're supposed to include everyone. So if we start taking different boards, no matter, I mean, this could be far-reaching just because there are conflict of interest rules that are in place usually with every board, and they are taken very seriously, and everything is very open. There's nothing being hidden here. The individual that they are focused on is, so if somebody from Pensacola, say Bob wants to open up a shop somewhere and he needs a building, sorry, he can't improve his, he can't be approved for the facade improvement plan because of somebody that owns the building. That's discrimination to me, okay? As long as the rules are being followed, whether, just like we have to recuse ourselves at times on this board, it's the same there. And as long as no funny business is being going on, then we keep moving forward and improving our city together.
I think that was the question, is to make sure there isn't any funny business going on. So I hear what you're saying, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Julie Nix, 6478 Highway 90, Suite A. I kind of beg to differ on the part about the business, the building owner. A grant was applied for by C&D Properties on the Brew Angels Brewery. C&D Properties, Brew Angels. That's 3 different requests, and it looks on here on this grant that Brew Angels, even that the grant that C&D Properties requested for historic window repairs and surrounds, that was granted, and she requested it under C&D Properties. That's Cassandra Sharp. She's the president of this Main Street Milton.
And I think also what was brought to my attention recently about this question, which goes to the question about whether there is funny business, is the certification that they have to make that there's no inurement to the benefit of a board member. It's not simply whether it directly is received by the board member.
And it benefits, it permanently benefits a structure that her corporation owns. So how does that not benefit her?
I understand. That was the question that was raised to me as well, is whether the improvement to the property that she owns then stays with her when her tenant leaves.
And another thing that I would point out is that regardless, and this conflict of interest policy that they have, that the person doesn't vote, regardless of whether the person votes or not, this is a first-come, first-served grant. It says it on their they've said it on their website. They've said that's how it works. So if it's a first-come, first-served grant, the board members are the first ones to know that this grant is available. So if the tenants of all of these property owners, of these board members, are the first people to apply, that knocks out other people in town as well. So that is also not fair to other property owners in town. I'm just pointing this out because this is a problem with the conflict of interest. And I have read before that the proper solution for this is for the board member to step off the board.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's just my 2 cents
Ms.
on
Nix?
it.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Nix?
Mm-hmm.
These are this grant system is advertised well in advance, and I don't think we've had enough to cover all the grant money. We've had grant money left over, so no one's been left off at all, to my knowledge. So just think somebody is on the board, puts theirs in at 1 minute after they're allowed to turn it in, and they're first up and get it automatically. That's a misconception.
Well, Councilman Snow, I think we ought to look further into the facts rather than debate it here.
Well,
I appreciate you bringing the concerns forward, Ms. Nix.
Thank you.
And I would ask if the council would consider whether there should be a motion to look into whether there is any further question to be researched beyond what Councilwoman Hawley's already identified with respect to the questions that have been raised about the possible benefits inuring to board members and what they should do about those potential conflicts of interest.
I'd like to make a motion that we would ask the organization to give us their current practice when it comes to properties that may be owned by a board member, or how that works as far as any kind of approval. I think that's something that would answer questions for us all. as to what the practice is and what the policy that they are employing is.
I think that's a good first step, but I also would like to ask council to consider this, that we already have knowledge as elected officials that a board member has received via her corporation or through her tenants having received grants. She has received benefits. Was that permissible? It's to her benefit to know for sure so that she can be fully advised about her responsibilities on that board so that she's protected herself. If there isn't a concern, then let's make sure we know there's no concern so we can resolve the questions of the public. If there is a concern, then that board member can take appropriate action.
I thought that's what I was asking for, Mayor.
Oh.
That's what I was asking for.
I heard you saying we're asking the board to respond to us. I'm asking council to ask our city attorney to research it.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
This is a perspective problem. I've had numerous conversations today, as a matter of fact, about the issue. There's quite a number of our citizens that are concerned about these grants, and right, wrong, or indifferent do need clarification.
So, did I misunderstand what you were asking for, Councilman Powell?
I believe that's what I was asking for, was for us to find out what the policy was and if that policy was in fact a legal policy to enforce.
Okay, I hear that as a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute.
Mayor, we have a motion. We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
No, wait.
There was a prior motion.
There was a prior motion for the
CRA expenditures.
You're right. I apologize. We need
to vote on that first.
There was a motion on the floor from Councilwoman Holly about the CRA expenditures, and I believe that was seconded by Councilman Powell.
It was.
Yes.
I don't believe we had a vote because we began to discuss further.
Yes.
Before we have any further discussion on any other comment, can we please have a vote on that motion?
Sure. The reading of the motion, wording of that.
The motion from Councilwoman Holly was that the city attorney research the responsibilities of the city clerk with regard to receipts with respect to CRA funding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That was my understanding of the motion.
That motion has been seconded by Councilman Powell. Please vote on that motion so that we may take up the other business. We have one nay. It does carry, so we ask the city attorney to follow up on that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then another motion that is being made, I believe, is from Councilman Powell to ask the city attorney to further explore the conflict of interest policy of the board for the Main Street board, and whether, with respect to the specific concerns that have been raised about grants, whether there's any particular concern as to the practice of the board thus far. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, but also on that, I would like the board to actually provide us with their information as well. Not just our research, but for them to actually give us what they're currently doing, what their current policy is, so that we can compare that to what findings there may be.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So what Councilman Powell is further saying is that the board should provide all the facts to the city attorney so that his research is on point and so that council can be fully informed. Do I hear a second? Councilman Jordan. Do you have any questions about
Mayor?
this motion?
Mayor, just a question on, and I'm all about being above board. So am I understanding this correct? Is like we want to start the business group and things like that. So anytime we want if we have groups or something, are they going to be, if we decide to, we get great ideas that might help or improve their properties, is that going to go against them? I mean, because I think we try to do everything to help everyone here. You understand what I'm saying?
I appreciate your concern about being helpful. I believe what I'm hearing as far as a concern is that because the city of Milton is funding Main Street Milton to such a high degree, that we have a responsibility as elected officials to ensure that the conflict of interest policy is appropriate and that the conduct of the board is consistent. And we're asking for the city attorney to advise us so that we can make sure that the board members are fully informed because they don't have a lawyer of their own.
We should have rules. I'm all for that, but no matter how much, if we're giving money from this to any group, then there should be standards, and I think they are in most 99% of the cases, and I'm sure we have them in Main Street too right now. So just something that's going to come up forward next on other issues.
Yes, sir. I would hope we have the same level of scrutiny. And considering that Main Street receives more funding than any other organization, it's appropriate that that scrutiny starts there. Yes, ma'am.
Teresa Messick, 6830 Pine Street. I would like to see accountability for the money that's already been given out, for the grants that have been approved. I'm all about making it nice, Jeff. I'm all about that. But this is money that comes from the taxpayers' money that goes into the city, and the city gives this to Main Street, and they give these grant monies out. So there needs to be how much they received. Show me your receipts where you have paid these. Show me your people that have done this, if you've given them 1099s or whatever. We, the taxpayers, we, the city people that live in the residents of the city of Milton, needs to see this. I myself have asked for this request. I asked for it 4 weeks ago, and I still haven't received it. So that's what I would like to see, that it's available as the city. Anybody can go in and get all of this information. Everyone that has received an application that was approved, what have you done? How much money did you get? Show me the receipts to back it up.
Well, Mrs. Messick, you're bringing up an issue that's beyond what the motion on the floor is. Can you allow us to have a vote on that?
Yes, absolutely.
And then
I would like to make a comment.
Councilman Powell.
Yes,
please.
I'm saying after the vote, I'd like to make a comment.
And then we'll come back to you, Mrs. Messick, after a vote on this motion. Is there a question on the motion? Yes, ma'am.
This is directed at Councilman Powell. In your motion, are you requesting that, because I know like it's a first come, first serve basis, is your request also to kind of see like what their procedure is to approve? Let's say we have like multiple businesses requesting the grant. What's your protocol in order, who's getting the money where? Is that part of yours?
I believe that was part of the question. Asking them to give us their procedure was so that we could clarify what their actual procedure is on approving the grant.
Okay.
The other part of that was looking at it to make sure that those procedures that they have in place do in fact fit with the legalities that we need them to fit with. I think that so far everything that we've received has been very transparent. I would hope that any question that we have about the legality of monies being spent would be something they would be happily available to give us. And I want to make sure that the questions we are asking are the correct questions, which where the attorney would be taking a look at it to make sure that those questions are correct. We're not just making an assumption that somebody's doing something wrong, but we're actually looking to see what it is.
Yeah.
And if there's something that we need to address, then we need to be aware of it
as well. Because I would like to see how they decide what business gets their money if multiple people are applying for a grant.
Absolutely.
The criteria.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Exactly.
So what's being asked of the city attorney if this motion succeeds is that Main Street Milton communicate with the city attorney about its procedures and its criteria for awarding funds, as well as its procedures for protecting against conflicts of interest, so that board members are conducting themselves consistent with legal requirements.
Yeah, I mean, because it just seems like if they have a board of directors, I mean, to me, if you have 5 businesses applying for one grant, to me, wouldn't the board of directors vote on who gets that money?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if she's on the board, or whom, I mean, is she also voting on these businesses? So I just want to see like what their procedure is as far as who gets what money.
Well,
absolutely.
Okay.
So if it's now understood by everyone, I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. It's now understandable. Are you ready to vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that is unanimously approved for further study by the city attorney. So you are hopefully on board with what is being asked. I hope it all makes sense.
I believe I understand, and if not, I have a recording to listen to.
Yes, sir, you do. And Mrs. Messick, to go back to your comment, did you want to state something further?
Well, there was other thing I wanted to add to it is I know in part of the requirement says that they pay back 20% of the money each year and then it's forgivable. I want to see what they've paid, whoever has received any of these, if they have paid any. So those are all part of the indemnities.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to say is I just saw today a press release, I'm not sure if you did, that Main Street Milton had voted unanimously by their board members to become compliant with Sunshine Law. So hopefully these indications to me would be that everything that we're asking for should be forthcoming. Obviously, we're going to make sure that we follow up with accountability. And I think some people may find that funny in the audience. I'm not really sure why. We're doing our job trying to make sure that we're making them accountable. I think the program has been doing well. Obviously, some people have different opinions about that, but I think from what we've seen and from what the communication with the program and with the city manager, that it's been working well. So hopefully we will continue to work well, and hopefully if there is an issue, we're going to address it. Hopefully there's not, but we're going to make sure that we do our due diligence.
Thank you. And Mrs. Messick, also, when I followed up with Mr. Spears about questions people had brought to me about Main Street, he encouraged me to encourage anyone to come and see him so that he could show them all the documents that might answer their questions.
I refuse to go before Mr. Spears. I have told that to Mr. Jorgensen and to Tim that I requested it through the city because I think he makes you feel intimidated and he has sarcastic remarks when I think if you are a resident of the city that you have the right to ask these questions, that you want to see accountability. There's nothing wrong if someone receives $2,500 or they receive $5,000 or $1,000. There should be receipts that you should be able to look at, what they have done, and if you requested it through the city should be able to accommodate. And if there's a charge for that, they need to say this is how much it's going to cost, so you know as the person that's requesting it, this is what it's going to cost you to get the information.
To respond to your question, it seems to me that those are public records that are subject to production.
Mayor, as it relates to her question, and I really didn't intend to have this conversation here this evening, but she did ask Mr. Spears to provide her with the documents in regard to the awards that have been made. Mr. Spears had indicated that they would be available to her at the Main Street Center and that he would be happy to provide them, and if there were costs associated with reproducing any of the materials found there, that those costs would be identified, and she agreed to pay them. She did indicate that she did not desire to go to the Main Street Milton, the Main Street Center and see Mr. Spears. I then asked Mr. Spears to provide me with the originals. He has given them to administration today. I've taken a full set of those materials in copy. The originals will be provided to Mr. Milstead. Ms. Messick was going to be contacted. She'll be invited to come to City Hall and review the files. If she'd like copies made, they'll be made at that time and at the cost that the policy of the City of Milton would indicate. And that's where that's at. And that was, I mean, that occurred today. So
thanks for the update.
That's where we are.
And I believe with our public records policy that any document subject to production should be readily available for the city clerk to produce upon request.
It is.
So someone should be able to come to City Hall if that's what they desire.
Yeah,
Thank you,
it's
Mrs.
been 5
Messick.
weeks, so I appreciate that.
Thanks, Mrs. Messick, for your patience, and I'm sorry for the trouble. Is there anything else? I see here that the Councilwoman Holly had added to the agenda the audit, and I believe that the entire discussion we've had has been related to that item she has for her council report. Did you have something else for your council report?
No, ma'am. Okay.
So in addition to Councilwoman Holly's council report, we were asked by Councilman Snow to add 3 items. Councilman Snow, do you want to be recognized now?
Yes, ma'am. First one, we've been basically discussing the letter to FDOT that we've had in previous discussions. I basically want to make a motion to have staff send another strong message to FDOT on where the city of Milton is this council stands against the 4-lane and how the survey basically speaks for the citizens at 80% against. I put that in form of a motion.
Second.
I heard several seconds. Who's the second? Councilwoman Smith? Okay. So Councilman Snow has made a motion, and are you saying to send the same letter that was sent before? That was part of the package?
I haven't seen that letter, so I would like...
Don't you remember the letter that was part of our package recently?
Right.
That's what I'm asking you about.
Well, I think we need to reiterate the survey in there and where we stand at on it.
And where is the survey again?
I don't have it with me, but I can supply it to you soon.
Mayor?
The FDOT did the survey.
Okay, and Councilwoman Smith has seconded. Do we have discussion? Councilman Jordan.
Mayor, what survey are we talking about? Are we talking about the survey that was done after the meeting, the hearing at the county facility? That survey was badly biased.
Well,
how do you say?
I guess if it went the way that you want it, you would be okay.
You haven't been recognized.
Councilman Jordan's been recognized. Councilman Snow. I realize this is a heated issue. We're just going to have to take it step by step. Councilman Jordan, do you remember which survey this was that you're saying is biased?
Oh yes, it was a survey that everybody who went to the hearing was requested to fill out and send in. That survey was put on the internet by
FDOT
Mr.
themselves.
Sanborn and also by Vernon Compton.
So are you talking about Mr. Compton's survey?
It was the same survey.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, it was. Okay. And people from all over the nation filled out that survey, not just people from Milton. It was biased. When you say 80% of the people from Milton filled it out, that is incorrect. Thank you.
May I speak?
Yes, sir. Councilman Powell, you're recognized.
I believe FDOT also provided that via the internet, not just secondary sources. There was actually a link to FDOT to actually go on and take it on their site.
I never saw that.
Yeah, it was not a separate survey that was generated. Now, it may have been shared by other people. I'm not sure. I'm not personally aware of it being shared, but you seem to have seen it. I didn't. But I know that I personally did direct people in the community to take the survey that weren't at the meeting because it was at the FDOT website.
So is it the FDOT survey that you're talking about, Jeff? And so is this a document that FDOT can produce to us or no? Yes, sir, Mr. Jordan.
I'm certain FDOT can produce what they have on record as it relates to that survey. Let me try to cut this discussion short. I have contacted the Florida Department of Transportation's representative to the Transportation Planning Organization, a gentleman by the name of Brian Polk, who was out of his office until tomorrow. Tomorrow he will receive a request of mine to appear before this council next Tuesday evening, the purpose of which would be for him to share with you where they are in regard to the planning, development, and project environmental and engineering that they've conducted for the last 2.5 years. He would also have the opportunity during the course of that conversation to hear from you about how you feel about Highway 90.
Thank you for doing that.
There is no better way to get the information to him than getting him to appear before you next Tuesday night. That's what I've asked.
And
then if I could, as it relates to the material that's been provided to the department to date, you have amended your comprehensive plan. Right. You have passed a resolution in opposition to any action taken by the department that could be considered harmful to the historic district. Those are, for lack of better words, the pinnacle of actions that you can take as a council to indicate your position on this issue. Anything you do as a follow-up is just reinforcing what you've already done.
And that's my intention.
I'd encourage you to allow Mr. Polk to appear, if possible, and if not, we'll be happy to craft that correspondence following council action.
Councilman Snow, just so you're aware, when I received my TPO orientation, I learned about Mr. Polk's contact information, I asked Mr. Jorgensen if he would ask him to come see us because of the concerns you had about making sure that they're aware of what this council thinks. So I was pleased to hear that Mr. Jorgensen had followed up on that just now. I think that will be useful.
May I comment?
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Rice, you're recognized.
Thank you. So I appreciate the idea of Mr. Polk coming, but we don't know for sure if he'll be here, so I wouldn't want to delay that letter. I think we can send a letter and then also have Mr. Polk come.
We have a motion and a second, so are y'all ready to vote on the letter? Do we need to hear from Ms. Mitchell first? Yes, yes, sir.
Regarding the survey, it is requested that the survey information be placed in this letter. Have you not heard information back from FDOT that they were concerned about this survey themselves and had been researching whether it was a legitimate survey or not?
Well, I've heard from FDOT that they have concerns about more than just one survey that's been conducted in regard to Highway 90. And those have been the expressions that they've made. It's really hard to have a scientific survey on a subject like this. You know, we'll obtain the results of the survey from FDOT's perspective, and we'll be happy to provide that to the council for your consideration.
Is there any way that we can substantiate that it was 80% of the citizens of Milton that voted for this?
I don't know that one can. I do know that we can await the materials provided by FDOT, which would be the materials that they would take into consideration in their decision-making process.
Mrs. Mitchell, do you have a comment before they vote on this motion?
Yes, I do, and it relates to the survey. Approximately 2 weeks ago, I asked Iris Waters, who took Peggy Kelly's place, if she would provide us the results or a link to the FDOT surveys. We had a lot of people that were interested. And my personal comment about the surveys is the one that it was an FDOT form that was put on the internet, and it was populated already to where if you clicked on that survey, you didn't get to say what you wanted to say. It was populated that you were against the four-laning of Highway 90. And so I think it was front-loaded to get the results that a certain group of people wanted, hence the 80% that you mentioned, Councilman Snow. So I think Councilman Jordan has a good point that we need to find out whether FDOT thought that this was an actual verifiable survey. Thank you.
I would say if they were that concerned, they would already brought that to our attention. I think it's time to stop delaying this. It's been put to us before. We don't know where this council stands, and we can find out right now. Send the letter immediately tomorrow, and look forward to hearing from our FDOT representative.
Sanborn.
Yes, Jack Sanborn, 6484 Old Baghdad Highway. Yes, I helped get the official form out to on the internet, and it was an official form. DOT recognized it, and everybody, it may have been front-loaded to help the voting, but everybody had to put their email, their address, and their name, so they weren't hoodwinked into voting.
Mm-hmm.
Call to question, Mayor.
One of the concerns I had was I would like to hear from citizens about what they think about the four-lane myself. I know what I heard on the campaign trail, but we've never had, as far as I can recall, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Jorgensen, but have we had a town hall meeting or a public hearing where people who actually live in Milton or travel through Highway 90 have shared with us their concerns? I know that they've gone to the comment opportunities when the PD&E study was being done. So I thought it might be useful to the council to hear that, but I hear also that this council is, at least some members are interested in taking action tonight. But do you have a further comment before they vote, Mrs. Messick?
Call the question?
Yes.
I hear you asking to call the question. Yes, ma'am.
I had called Mr. Kobe Cleveland. He is actually over the department that Peggy Kelly was in.
Okay.
And I asked him to send me the information as in reference to when I served on Main Street, and they did the survey that was 5,000 and ended up to be very small print. And he told me that most of those emails did not have an address. They weren't from certain areas. And, you know, if you took 80% of the Milton's population, which is close to 10,000 registered voters, 8,000, that is a high percent. And even someone tried to get it to be approved, and I know who that person is, to even have 12-year-olds participate in this survey.
Well,
so the thing is that he said he was getting that information, and in February of this month is when they are actually meeting again to have the drawn up whatever they have here. So, you know, Jeff, I don't know where all these surveys are going, but there were several out there, and that they do not have the addresses of all these people that are there. So that is not correct information.
Thank you for your comment. I've asked council to wait to be fully informed with the actual facts. But the question's been called, so what are the votes on this motion, please? Tiebreaker required.
That's you, Mayor.
So what we've been asked to vote on is whether to direct you to send this letter with this survey. Everyone's heard me say that I'd like for us to have that facts before us. I have not seen these surveys, so I don't have enough facts, so I have to vote no.
Can you hold that, please?
The votes: nay, Heather Lindsay; aye, Heather Hathaway; nay, Peggy Smith; aye, Shannon Rice; nay, Mary Johnson; nay, George Jordan; aye, Jeff Snow; nay, Sharon Holly; aye, Casey Powell. And there's time to do this letter another day. It doesn't have to be done today, and votes may change as more information becomes available to us. Councilman Snow, you had other issues for your council report. Would you like to continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Please go forward.
Length of meetings that we have, somebody brought it up before, and I know staff they have stated that we're not sure if we have enough time for everything that committee or council members or the mayor might want to bring up. I believe we need, if members on this board, including the mayor, if we have things we need to discuss, I think we need to stay as late as we need to stay. And so that's where I would like to keep it. Mainly in the committee of the whole would be that meeting, because we can reduce it down by the time we get to this meeting. So I just wanted to bring that up talk-wise. Well,
that's an important housekeeping point, Councilman Snow, and one of the reasons why I suggested that we have a committee to study whether the charter should be reviewed by a citizens committee led by Councilman Powell is because those kinds of things require some deep discussion, and it makes sense to have a subcommittee for that, to have its own process, so that at the committee of the whole we can still move forward with important business and also give adequate time for important issues to be deeply studied. So sometimes there may be occasions where, rather than stay here till midnight or something, we might want to say, hey, I think staff needs to set up a special meeting for this sort of discussion to continue. For example, I think the PD&E study, the Highway 90 concerns, the very concerns that you're talking about, deserve their own meeting for
well, a
full
lot of those,
discussion.
When we changed the resolution that we made the last time, a lot of all the input that you're talking about was put in by different citizens. So it's not like we haven't heard from the citizens. We actually have, and a lot. So.
And there may be times where we want to hear from the citizens again, but I hear what you're saying. So I don't know if you have a specific action item in relation to that concern. Are you asking everyone to consider that?
I don't want to limit what we need to get done here is really just my point. Not that an action needs to be made. It was just So, all right, and that's all I'll have to. All right, thank you.
You had another item you wanted to add. Did
DPO,
you,
I'll
are you
discuss
withdrawing
it.
that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is there anything else council would like to comment on as far as council reports? Okay, moving to the mayor report, it actually relates to the TPO. There is a TPO meeting coming up this month. I've asked the Mayor Pro Tem, Councilwoman Johnson, to go in my stead as I have a court appearance out of town that cannot be changed.
Do we have a date on that, Mayor?
It is February 13th. And the agenda has not yet been distributed, Councilman Snow, or else I would have asked that it be shared so y'all would know what's coming up. Yeah, lucky 13. City Manager's report.
Just one comment, Councilwoman Johnson, Mr. Milstead, the Chief of Police, and I attended an outreach meeting on the Berry Hill Corridor study this afternoon at 4. The public outreach meeting was at 5:30. I indicated to those present that the council would be engaged in other conversations at that point, otherwise you would be present, and that our viewpoints on the importance of bicycle pedestrian passage along that corridor and safety improvements within this community have not changed. All I have, Mayor.
Thank you, and I realize I did not mention this. At the break, Ms. Nobles and I noted that the report, the final report, is actually due on Wednesday, not Friday. If anyone needs to submit their report, still don't wait till Friday. It's due Wednesday. And also, I had received a call regarding the Mardi Gras parade from the group that's putting it on, and Pam had followed up with us by email. Hope everyone saw that. Let Pam know if you're going to be in the parade so we can get candy. I've got candy left over from the Martin Luther King parade that I can bring in. I can't be in that parade because it's my son's birthday. So I just hope everyone is following up on the Mardi Gras parade. And
did you ask him if he wanted to be in the parade?
You know, that's a good point, Peggy.
He might really like
I better go home and talk to my son about this before I make too quick a decision.
Like a parade just for you.
He could get into a float. You're right. So don't forget about the Mardi Gras parade, y'all. And now we can move on to other business, I believe. Is that right?
That's correct.
Would you like to take the lead on these, Mr. Jorgensen?
I can. Item 1164, Blackwater Glow Run 2019. I think most of you are familiar with this activity and the benefit to the community. The recommendation, staff has met with the event organizer to cover all city standards, is recommending the approval of the event.
You need a motion?
That would be wonderful.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Smith, second by Councilman Powell. If there's no discussion, please vote. Unanimously approved.
Item 1165, Main Street Milton request for ex officio member. The Main Street's Board of Directors has asked that the City Council appoint from amongst its members an individual to join their board as an ex officio member. We've asked Council to designate a representative to serve as ex officio on the Main Street's Board of Directors. You recall, Mayor, you've recommended that George Jordan, because of his relationship to the Chair of Growth and Development Committee, serve in that capacity. Council, question?
Discussion.
Yeah, and just so I can follow up on my recommendation, it was in part to try to address the perception issue, as I believe Councilman Jordan can help build a bridge so that people can begin to work more productively with Main Street. Councilwoman Hathaway, did you ask to be recognized?
I know that this was brought up at the last meeting and Councilwoman Peggy wasn't at the meeting, and I would like to hear her opinion on, you know, somebody outside of Ward 1 being appointed.
Thanks for reminding me of that. Councilwoman Smith, we had a concern at the last meeting since you weren't here. The Main Street Milton Board had recommended a representative from Ward 1, which would be either Councilwoman Hathaway or yourself. And I would be happy to hear if you would like to be on this. The reasoning I had for suggesting Councilman Jordan is because there has been so much controversy that has been brought to my attention. It was my belief that, and my hope and my prayer, that if Councilman Jordan, who has already built trust with the people who are concerned about Main Street, if he can be on the board as an ex officio member, he can help build that bridge so people can learn to communicate about Main Street in a more productive way.
As a charter board member of the organization from the outset, I think perhaps it would be slightly inappropriate for me to be on there. I have a little too much skin in the game. However, anyone who wants to talk about how Main Street works in this city and other cities, I'll be glad to address that. But I think it would be more appropriate if there was another representative other than myself.
And yes, sir, Councilman Powell.
I appreciated our conversation we had at our last meeting, and tonight's conversation has more solidified my recommendation. So I'd like to make a motion that Sharon Hawley be that member.
I'll withdraw your motion.
You can't do that. Hold on.
You can't make her go, Mr. Powell.
If you would be willing, I thought that it would be a good fit because you have had some questions, and I think it would be a good way to get them answered.
Not a good fit for that. Whatever ex officio, I think George is.
Okay.
Already voted on him.
I appreciate your motion, Councilman Powell. I hear Councilwoman Holly is
Thank you, Kate.
asking is not able to serve.
Mayor,
yes, sir, Councilman Snow.
I'd just like to make sure our Ward 1 doesn't want to be that representative. Heather?
I mean, and I said it at the last meeting that, I mean, I think it would be good, and I think it would help build a bridge if somebody, you know.
Are you sure you don't want to do it, Ms. Holly? Come on. I was being serious. Just anybody think I was being serious?
I mean, in Main Street, Milton, they are, I mean, they're very transparent, and it's not that I have any questions about anything, but I think that it would be good to let George represent the council.
I agree with council.
Is there a motion on that?
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Smith, second by Councilwoman Johnson. If there's no further discussion, please vote. You can abstain.
Yeah. Still going for Sharon Hawley.
You'd have to buy her a super large bottle of Advil or aspirin or whatever she's allowed to take. Don't make her do that.
I'm not making her. I was just still my choice.
It would take more than a bottle of aspirin.
Unanimously approved to appoint Councilman Jordan to be the ex officio member for Main Street. I'm sorry, Mr. Jorgensen, I believe we're at 1190.
Item 1190, training for Mr. Hoyt. Mr. Hoyt needs to be recertified as a traffic signal field technician level 2 and the work zone traffic control level 1. Training will be in Powder Springs, Georgia, March 18th, 22nd. Cost estimate $2,197. This is not a want, it's a need. Thank you.
Motion.
There you go. Second.
Y'all are all fighting to be the one to do it.
We're going
I
home
heard
by
Councilwoman
9.
Hathaway do the motion, and I believe I heard Councilwoman Smith do the second. If there's no further discussion, please vote. Unanimously approved.
Item 1191, Council on Aging meal sites. Staff has met with the Council on Aging and has come up with an arrangement to use the community center as a meal site. We've talked about this for some time. It's been taken up in the LEAP committee. This will allow us to continue to grow our senior programs. Recommendation is to execute the contract with the Council on Aging and establish a meal site as soon as possible.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Powell, second by Councilwoman Johnson. If there are no questions or discussion, please vote. Johnson, Councilwoman Johnson, it's not showing yours. There we go. Unanimously approved.
The next item, Madam Mayor, is 1192, City of Milton Fire Department Annual Report. It's provided to the Council for informational purposes. The next item, if I could, unless there are questions, is item 1193, Milton Cubed. This is a concept that was brought to our attention by Main Street Milton. It is similar in work that has been done in the city of Pensacola. You can see how the cubes have been used for art purposes. The Arcadia Mills site was able to acquire a cubed frame and would hope to share it with this community. The intent is to possibly place it in a appropriate location and have it used for the purposes that are outlined in the material you've been provided. We're looking for your guidance in light of Milton Wings. We're looking for your guidance.
May I speak, Madam?
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Holly?
The $3,000 estimate, is that in lieu of what they're already receiving from the city of Milton, or were that?
This would be in addition to those revenues. That's correct.
I've got, can I make a comment?
Yes, yes, sir.
I really do like this project. I think that since seem to be moving forward with the other project, I would like to make a suggestion that we continue this in committee for now, and that's just my suggestion. And if no one wants to second it, that's fine. I just think it may be a good idea.
I can appreciate that, and frankly, I feel that that's probably an appropriate act at this point.
You need a second?
Second.
May I make?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Rice.
Thank you. So I'm looking at these projects, these different art projects and things that are going on downtown, and it just makes me wonder, is our Arts and Culture Foundation still active? Are they being a part of this? Are they being consulted with this? And what about Main Street Milton as the events coordinator?
This is actually derived from Main Street Milton's event coordinator. So,
okay,
yeah,
okay, that's great. But the Wings project was it? And I'm wondering why our Arts and Culture Foundation's not part of this, or do they not want to be?
That would be the type of conversation we can have in the committee of the whole, and that's why I felt it's not inappropriate to send it back to the committee of the whole.
Okay.
Maybe we could invite them to discuss that.
Do they not play that role? I don't know what their role is with us, but I would think it would be involved with the art.
Perhaps you could get us a list of who's on that board now, and then we'll reach out.
We'll invite them to the
appropriate.
committee of the whole and see if we can get a representative of the organization here for the purpose of this conversation.
Thank you, sir. So does this require a motion to move this to committee of the whole?
It would.
Okay, I believe I heard Councilman Powell make that motion.
Second.
Was there a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Smith is seconded. There's no further discussion. Please vote to move this to committee of the whole for further discussion. Unanimously approved. Cedar Ridge Subdivision Outreach Meeting.
1194. It is informational item. I just want to call to your attention. We are going to hold an outreach meeting on Saturday the 16th from 8:30 to 9:30. We're going to hold that here. The residents of that part of the community are going to be asked to identify a preferred option. Some of the options that are going to be portrayed are a speed bump, speed table, children at play, stop signs, amongst others. And we're going to ask those people that reside in that area to come forward and identify which solution to include. Do nothing is preferable from their perspective, and we'll provide the outcome of those expressions to the council.
And we can attend if we'd like.
You're certainly invited.
I was just going to ask, do you want us or not?
Well, the
Are
question
we going to muddy
is,
the water?
The question is really, how do the residents feel, and
Right.
what's the solution that they would find to be desirable? If you attend, I encourage you to do so, but please allow them to state their preference.
Absolutely.
I think it'd be good that the council's here to hear everybody out, since we're going to be ones making the decision in the end.
So I'll look forward to potentially seeing you on the 16th.
Is it going to be recorded?
Can be.
I have a something else that I'm attending that day, stormwater related.
Yeah, the recorded in that kind of environment, the way this is going to be set up is going to be kind of tough.
Okay.
Is someone going to take minutes?
Well, no, it's an outreach meeting now.
Okay.
You know, we'll take attendance at the door to try to identify the respondents,
There you go.
having been derived from that part of the community, because those are the opinions we're looking for.
Right.
And then the easels are going to have tabs where they'll place their vote, and we'll know how those votes have been placed. We'll provide that information to you. So that's how it will be tracked.
It'll be similar to that sheet, similar to that sheet we received where you saw some yellow dots showing some feedback. You're going to get a more complete set of feedback so that we can see what the property owners want or the residents want. Does that respond somewhat to your concerns? So if y'all aren't going to be there, I see both of y'all interested in hearing.
No, I was just saying, are they going to be able to speak, and if council is here? I mean, or is it just simply a voting thing?
I mean, the idea is an outreach meeting to try to get them to express their positions, and it's not to hear from individuals in the neighborhood. Those things are done under persons to appear at council meetings.
Okay.
We're looking for a vote from them on which option they would elect to be appropriate from their perspective.
My question is, if someone comes to this outreach meeting and they express some comments about what they want, is anyone going to write down so-and-so wants such and such?
We could easily have an easel with a tablet on it and a marker, obviously, that would indicate comments can be taken here.
Okay. Right. Does that someone else?
I just had a quick question. I know if we're going to have the markers like you were saying, that they might put where they would want a stop sign. But what if an overall majority of them don't want the stop sign? How's that going to be counted?
It's actually not just a stop sign. Stop sign is one of the options. A speed bump may be an option. A speed table is an option. Children at play is an option. And so we're going to have easels set up throughout the council chambers.
No change option.
No change is an option.
So they're coming here.
That's right. They're coming in here. They're coming up, looking at this series of options they've got, and they're placing their vote on which one they think is the best.
I don't know if anyone was at the Carpenter's Park outreach where we had the easel set up and they were able to identify we want this here or that there. I think it's a similar approach.
It's similar. It's a planning practice for outreach meetings. That's the methodology we'll employ.
Thank you, Mr. Jorgensen. Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Rice.
I had hoped that Mr. Jorgensen could attend a stormwater green infrastructure thing, which is kind of all day on that same day. Would we really need him to be here if whatever he chose, place that he thought would be better? It's a pretty good thing.
You think one of us could do the dog and pony show as well as you?
I think the planning department is going to be the one taking point, not Mr. Jorgensen.
That's exactly. I can easily assign this to the planning department.
Okay.
And I'd look forward to spending the day on green infrastructure.
So just to clarify the record,
I just wanted to make sure that was okay with
some of us.
Anyone didn't expect to be here because I was hoping that he would want to go to this class.
Well, I'm sure he's ecstatic.
Some of us were talking over each other. So just to be clear, Mr. Jorgensen, no, that's okay. Are you going to the stormwater function that Councilwoman Rice is talking about? Or are you going to be here for the outreach meeting?
I intend on attending the extension training on green infrastructure.
And that's the meeting you're talking about, right, Councilwoman Rice? Okay. And someone from...
Planning will administer the outreach meeting. It's a common function.
Thank you, sir.
Does council need to be at this outreach meeting?
Council does not need to be at the outreach meeting.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Okay. So now, 4.
Yeah.
Moving on to 1195. Are we ready to go to that one now, Mr. Jorgensen? Natural gas of Milton marketing comparisons. This was just an
at this point, it's an
item.
informational item. We're going to take it once we get more data back to Committee of the Whole and provide it to you there.
Thanks for that progress report. And then the street improvements item, 1196.
We've been asked to bring forward the current slate of improvements that are found within the street improvement program. You can see my expressions. They are what they are, and that is that essentially, the street improvement program has been an instrument that has guided our investment over time, and it continues to. This is the current slate of streets that would be addressed during this fiscal year.
So Queen Street is on the list. Mr. Johns was concerned about that street, I believe.
Queen Street obviously is. It's on the bottom of the list. we'll be able to get to that, I think, during the course of this fiscal year. If it appears to me that any of the streets that would be improved through the use of the CDBG are found on this list, and it is the opinion of the author of that grant that they feel will be more than competitive, that we probably won't look to make that investment. I don't want to subject you or the council to the criticism of, oh, so you just milled and resurfaced this street, and within 12 months we go in and gut it.
So that particular grant could affect Queen Street, and that's why you have it towards the end, just to see what will be needed, or no?
Well, it was towards the end because it was towards the end in the slate. I didn't put it there for any particular reason, but that will be a judgment we make. If we can move other streets forward from the 2021 fiscal year and funding's available, we'll do that. My fear in making any change to this current schedule is that this schedule has been shared with the public for a number of years. People have asked, where is Laughlin Avenue? We've told them it would be done this year. Now we're going to change the schedule because someone else believes that their street is a more important priority. It's council's call. Ultimately, we will follow whatever direction we've been provided, but there was an extensive analysis conducted to arrive at the streets that are found here, and unless there's a real compelling reason, I would hope that you follow this schedule.
Isn't this an informational item? There's no need for a motion at this time?
Not unless the council would desire. Otherwise, we're going to move forward with what's found here.
Councilwoman Johnson, did you have a comment? I don't think it was heard by the mic, but I thought I heard you saying something. Do you have a comment?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, 11:97, committee of the whole meeting time.
There was an expression made by Councilman Snow as it relates to the length of the meetings and what time the committee of the whole meets. I'm not touching this. Y'all decide when you want to get together. We're here at your beck and call. We'll anytime you want to meet for as long as you want to meet. But from my perspective, I will say I am making at least one change. That change is in your agendas going forward, especially for committee of the whole. There's going to be action items, discussion items, and informational items, and that's the way you're going to receive them. So that if there's work that's got to be done in a timely fashion, those items are going to be taken up first.
Okay. No, what a swell plan.
What a novel concept.
What a swell plan.
I would like to make a motion that our committee of the whole meeting starts at 5:30.
Second.
A discussion, please?
Yes, Councilwoman Rice.
I wondered if at this time we should, or we could also consider putting every meeting. Right now I think there's a Monday, Tuesday, and a Thursday. If we had all those meetings on Tuesdays, it would allow staff time to give us the agendas on Fridays, I think. And I've already talked this over with Mr. Jorgensen, and I don't think he has a problem with the Tuesday meeting.
I don't. That's ultimately your call. You know, there is a valid point in that if the materials are provided on the Friday prior, you've got a weekend to look at them.
And a Monday to talk about it.
And a Monday, yeah. Not amongst each other.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Not amongst each other.
Come in and complain to your office.
But right now you've got obviously the first Monday, the second Tuesday. If you'd like to change it to a Tuesday, we're here when you need us here.
Can I explain a little bit more about why?
I was about to ask you a question.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well, the reason why is because like this last committee of the whole, I got the agenda 2 days prior, and that is, it takes a long time to go over every item, and I know that was a long agenda, but I take every item serious, so I need to spend some time on it. And getting it the Friday before is still just 2 working days for that meeting. So I'm not really asking for it. You know, if we have the meeting on a Tuesday, if they give it to us the Friday, that's a Friday, and then a Monday. It would be the working day. So it would just allow, I know it would allow me more time to prepare. I think it would allow other people's as well, but that's what, I kind of wanted to hear what everybody else thought about that.
So are you saying to keep the meetings like within the same week, just move all the meetings to that Tuesday?
To a Tuesday.
Okay.
A Tuesday, and a Tuesday.
Okay.
It's just my thought. I mean, I don't know how that works for everybody else.
Mayor?
But
are you
Snow.
done? on the 5:30, I understand where everybody's coming from, more people to get here. But like I said, I don't want to cut ourselves short on getting items done in the committee of the whole. I mean, I'm willing to stay as late as possible, and I understand we don't want staff to have to stay so long, except for Randy. But you know, I just don't want to cut the city short on us wanting to get out of here. So I don't mind moving it to 5:30. I understand 3 o'clock's tough on certain individuals, but
4 o'clock could allow for the full-fledged discussion without going too late, and also compromise some so people aren't having to take off from their work day as many hours.
What do you think of that, Casey?
I have something else.
Yeah, go ahead and speak.
Councilwoman Rice and Councilman Jordan.
Okay, so what I saw it was right around 2001, then when the economy was picking up, is that when I was in property management, I had to adjust my hours because people needed to work. So I think right now the economy's picking up, and I think it would be reasonable for us to adjust our hours so that people can be here.
Councilman Jordan.
I think Councilman Snow brought up a very valid idea. When Committee of the Whole was originally formed, we did away with the individual committees, and we've made every councilman a member of our committees, of each committee. And basically at the same time, we moved the executive committee from 4 o'clock to 5:30. We moved the regular council meeting from 5 o'clock to 5:30. This extended staff's hours right there to getting into their evenings. I think the 3 o'clock meeting of Committee of the Whole, 3 o'clock was picked because we expected this meeting to run 3 hours plus in a lot of cases. And if we move this meeting to 5:30, it may benefit a few, but there again, we will be putting an extra burden on staff that even though they're not going to stand up and say it, it is inconvenient for staff. And I think we should take them into consideration.
Councilwoman Holly, did you have a comment?
Mayor,
I did. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I heard it mentioned, I believe Councilwoman Rice, like Monday, 3 weeks, or Tuesday, or whatever. All right, that's 3 weeks in a row on the same day. That leaves 1 week if you have to go out of town at the end of the month. So a lot of council people, you know, if you have it second Tuesday, as we have now our city council, and then the third Thursday, you've got the rest of that week and until the following Thursday. But if we change this to the same day every week for 3 consecutive weeks, then that's going to possibly place up an undue burden on someone that needs to be out of town or doing something else.
May I? And I understand that.
Well, Councilman Snow, I believe, also had a comment. No? Okay.
No,
I think Councilman Powell did.
Yeah, that was me.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear who it
I was just going to ask Councilman Jurgen a question. When I became council member, we changed the times, but the Committee of the Whole being all members was in effect well before I became council member. That did not all happen at the same time, so I just wanted to clarify that you made it sound like we changed it all at one time, and we did not.
I did not mean to make it sound.
Yeah, I was just making sure we were clear on that, because that was already in effect.
I realize that. You're correct.
Councilwoman Rice?
I think there's flexibility in all of that. What if we did a Tuesday, a break, and then a Tuesday?
It's still the same thing. You got 1 week.
Can I ask a question? Why, if we get it on
say
Friday,
Tuesday?
why does it matter if we're out of town on the weekend?
Are you asking?
No, or Sharon, Michigan.
Oh, okay.
All right, coming up. We have a meeting on Tuesday. Sorry. And then you have the following Thursday, you have a Committee of the Whole meeting. Count how many days that is.
Oh, no, yeah. I was just talking about if going with her Tuesday situation.
No, I don't like Tuesday.
Okay.
Well, the Tuesday might require more thought because that's a new idea for today, but I know that people have talked about changing the time of Committee of the Whole. There's a motion already, change it to 5:30. It's been seconded. Does anyone want to amend that motion, or are we just going to go ahead and vote on that?
I can bring up schedule if I work away, if I look at a calendar and figure out a way that we can work it. Miss Hawley's requirements.
Well, it's not just Miss Holly's requirements. It's every council person sitting here.
Well, I think you're the only one that said it, so.
Well, I mean, I think her point has validity.
I do
mean,
too.
When you think about what staff has to do between a council meeting and a committee meeting, and you think about what our lives may be like and what people's lives may be like. I mean, having almost every Tuesday of the month occupied by city business may impose things that some of us are not prepared for. We've already set our schedules for the year, the third Thursday. I've already arranged my schedule. So, I mean, I personally don't want to change the date, but I understand that it would be simplified to have it the same day of the week.
Well, it would
it's something to think about.
The committee of the whole is on a Thursday, and that is the meeting that takes the most preparation, and we're getting our agendas 2 days prior.
Well, I guess what I would suggest to you about the committee of the whole is it doesn't require preparation in terms of actually finalizing a decision that day.
No, but
you don't actually decide anything.
To have the information to discuss. I mean, we kind of went over this in a few meetings prior that you want us to have our discussion in committee of the whole. I want to come to that meeting prepared.
Well, I hope you don't think that I am trying to suggest to you shouldn't discuss anything except during committee of the whole. My hope is that we have all the facts and that we've fully considered things well before a council. And so to have those things fleshed out, I would hope that we have had a chance to be introduced to the topic at committee of the whole, that we've had a chance to study it between committee of the whole and executive, and by the time council arrives, y'all feel like you're fully informed and you're able to make a good decision.
Mayor, can I make a suggestion?
Councilman Snow.
I understand, like you said, you've set your schedule for the year. Can we go ahead and possibly vote on the time now, and then maybe further throughout the year whenever we want to pick that subject back up before the next year is set, then come back and go that route? Because
that makes sense. So I hear that as calling the question for the motion to change the committee of the whole time to 5:30, which has been seconded. There's no further discussion on that motion. Please vote. Okay, the ayes have it. It is being moved. Yes, sir, Mr. Messick.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
2 nays, this is the executive committee meeting. It means it goes to
yes,
the council meeting, and it will be brought back up and voted on at council.
Thanks for keeping me awake, Mr. Messick. I have not had my dinner. So it's going to the council to be considered again because it was not unanimously approved, and now we can move forward to 1198 Carpenters Park Phase 1. This is this an informational item, or do you need a motion?
I need action. I need the council's, well, actually the amendment for the budget will be in the council material next Tuesday. So this is informational at this point. Keep in mind that we're going to review the proposals the same day as the council meeting. We will recommend to you if all of those are complete and we believe they're sufficient, who the contractors should be. Now that's so that we can meet our
That's very aggressive
timeline. If I'm not comfortable with what we receive, we're going to have to delay that. And we may, if you want to keep those timelines, need some additional time to review, and we may need a special council meeting for the purpose of awarding.
Yes, sir.
So that's where we're at. I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
So you're hoping to recommend to council someone to get the bid for February 12th, but you wouldn't have had a chance to...
I don't feel we've had an adequate opportunity to evaluate the proposals received at the time of the council meeting. I will then look for us to hold a special meeting for the purpose of the award.
And council may have questions so that they can review the materials themselves?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's a lot of money.
So informational item only, really, and just to be prepared for Tuesday. And so the last item, Liberty Partners Monthly Report. This is informational.
I've got one other thing, if I could.
Yes, sir.
Friday night is the Pace Chamber Banquet. It's at the Santa Rosa County Auditorium. We got tickets available for any council member and their spouse who would like to attend. The social's at 6, the dinner's at 6:30. As you're aware, we're a member. I'm a board member. We have an interest in ensuring that Milton gas is found in every commercial enterprise and every residence we can possibly place it in that part of Santa Rosa County. So please let me know if you'd like to come. Attire for that chamber banquet is casual.
And when is that again?
That's this coming Friday at 6 o'clock. 6:30 is dinner. 6 o'clock is the social.
And you don't have anyone yet who's confirmed to come?
I don't. I know Mr. Cook attends, and I generally attend.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Mr. Cook is Natural Gas of Milton. Natural Gas of Milton has got the greatest interest.
Right.
Does that mean I can wear my shorts?
That means you can. That you can.
Councilwoman Holly?
The group photo is scheduled for next Tuesday. Can we reschedule that?
Uh-oh.
Well,
I'm sorry, I won't be here. I have a court appearance out of town. Well, wait, I'm sorry, that's the 12th. I will be here. I'm sorry, forget it. I will be here. No.
Showed me.
I will be here. I will be here, Pam. I'm
that
sorry.
photographer's pretty pricey.
I will be here.
Sharon, I'll come get you. We'll get you here.
We'll bring a beautician with you.
Well, hey.
I'm sorry, Pam.
The first I've seen it.
At any rate, it's scheduled for next Tuesday. It has been scheduled for next Tuesday, and
may or may not
we're optimistic about your attendance, Councilman Hawley.
Group photo February 12th, and if we have to help Councilwoman Holly get here, we're going to do it.
I think that would be wonderful. I appreciate that from all of you.
So the gang will all be here, right?
I know that my good friend is going to send me a reminder so that I don't show up in my shorts from the auction and embarrass all of you.
Oh,
you
I'm
can
sure
send
she
me
will.
a text.
I'm sure she will.
If I'm not crawling under some rowdy truck, I will.
That's all I have, Mayor, if there isn't anything additional.
We are adjourned.
God.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
To get me all hooked up.
We'll go for the lot of die.
I sit here to my back just.
How are you? Good to see you. Thumping. I'm Sharon.
This much fun and a paycheck.
I'm having surgery tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I thought if you just need help, we're just going to get you.
No.
Okay.
Not that. My husband would bring me.
Okay. I didn't know if something had come up.
I'm just not sure I'll be physically able to be there. I mean, they're going to be doing a lot of packing and repairing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll just see. I can be here. I will if I can.
I just didn't know if you were.
It's okay. Huh?
Does it just?
If I'm not, I'm not. I mean, I'll try. I'll try my best. That's like, you know what I'm saying? Just 1 week.
Yeah. So I didn't have time to.
But anyway.
There are those who would love to false it. They want to hear you in the microphone.
Wasn't.
I love your laugh too. You have a beautiful laugh. I love her laugh.
Taking care of. Oh, so we're only getting one check. I thought it.
One of those 31-day months. Can't talk about with her right here.
On the 28th of each month.